Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Mandala episode 11. We are almost had it perfect, and I had to go and play another song. We are on Mandala episode 11 now. That's 11 times the amount of information that you're going to get from any bullshit podcast where Sargon talks about how he wants to be black, and Andrew Anglin comes along and says how, and or Joe Rogan comes along and says, "Dude, weed limo." That's 11 times the excitement and 11 times the analysis and the epicness which we bring to the table.
The only podcast that is better is Alex Jones Show.
The Alex Jones Show has nothing on this. We are merging. This is we're on some 2050 merged with the singularity into the fullness of awareness type shit. Again, this is Shaktipat Seer here. I've been busy a lot, guys. Got a new job going on, but I found time, thankfully, to be able to host the Mandala episode 11. And we have IXI and our guest, Nick Lowe. I'm going to say hello, guys.
Fantastic.
I gotta turn you guys up a little bit.
We have a good note lineup for today.
Yeah, we got some really good talking points today. Definitely. A lot of stuff's been going on. Why can't I copy this link? So, to begin with, I know we kind of went off into splitting up between the we did an episode where we just focused on the Buddha Dharma, and then we did an episode where we just focused on politics. Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get this copy into my my YouTube community thing so I can put it on my channel, because of course we're broadcasting from my backup channel because I got a thing recorded, so it's going to be a little while. So back on Shakti Butts here. But let's begin with the first topic here. There's a lot to talk about concerning politics, but we're going to get to that. A lot to talk about, actually. And come to think about it, this is pretty packed with information here. Okay, so we're going to start off with talking about something which I came across like a week ago and put on as a talking point, because I thought it was really interesting, and it ties into the stuff that we've been talking about for a while. Aleister Crowley and John Dee, and that's kind of been for one reason or another, it's just kind of something which bubbled out of the kind of conversations we've been having that seem to have been very pertinent to the world order that we're living in. And if you're not
a lot of everything,
yeah, it's really weird how we just randomly were like, hey, why don't we go off on D one time, and then we're like, hey, wait a second, holy shit, this is like a huge topic.
And the Book of Enoch. We got to do an episode on the Book of Enoch sometime. Yeah, for some reason it butt blasts a lot of Christians to bring it up.
Yeah,
I don't know why the Book of Enoch triggers everyone. It's like, if they don't think it's real, then why are they so triggered?
I mean, it was a banned book from the get-go.
But look who banned it.
Who did ban it?
The Council of Nicaea.
Oh.
Too bad we don't have the echo effect for that.
Why can I not copy this link? It's driving me insane. Okay, okay. So, here's how we tie Crowley together with something that I think is very interesting. We have a connection between, and here's the meta aspect of this, is we have a connection between Crowley and the Beatles. All right, and as we know, the Beatles, well, first, before we start that, I can go back even further. Going back to D, going back to what we talked about how the one world, and if you guys are new to the podcast, go back and just listen from the first podcast, and you'll kind of get a backstory of, and it's really worth listening to, of the kind of stuff that we talk about, and it's incredibly relevant. So, going back to some of the topics which we originally harped on, how the Freemasons and how the kind of esoteric side of things tends to influence reality, and how the elites and their interaction with something. I think Terrence McKenna, what did he call it? The thing at the end of time. What was it? You should know this.
I can't remember what it was called, actually. I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, he called it like the thingamabob at the end of time, basically. We tend to call it nowadays the singularity. But in my mind, in my occult studied mind, in my meditative practiced mind, in my Silicon Valley raised mind, they're all the same thing. There's just something on the other side of the stuff that's influencing this side of the stuff. So however you want to interpret that. Anyway, so as the topic of Crowley and the Beatles relates to the Freemasonry and the American Revolution and the French Revolutions, and kind of how the humanity was progressed out of the Enlightenment towards what a lot of these illuminated thinkers, and a lot of people try to judge them and think that they're all these evil people. But I don't think anybody wakes up and says, oh, I'm going to be evil today. It's just people that maybe they take a little bit too much license. Maybe they're they're being influenced by these types of powers, you know, like the Enochian angels themselves. Maybe they're being influenced in their own unconscious minds, or from some ritual working that they're doing from the other side to lead us towards somewhere where we're going. Maybe it's going backwards and forwards at the same time. I don't know, but it seems to be like that now with this crazy timeline split. So
that's one of the reasons I'd like to eventually see if we could get Sparrows on the show, because he has a big philosophy regarding naturalism, and I'm not into the extreme like he is, obviously, because I've kind of accepted transhumanism as our trajectory.
Yeah,
but
if you watch the podcast, you will also.
I think that a push against nature is sort of, but like, say an angstful push against nature is one of the driving factors that we see with a bunch of groups, particularly the left. This idea, for example, that guns are bad, that's an anti-survival perspective. That's an anti-nature perspective.
It's kind of funny the way that you say that, because they bill themselves as like, the Greens and
they're the most anti-nature of all. They're pro-corporation. They're pro-pharma.
Shit, they just declared war against Pole.
Many of them are vegans. There's a lot of reasons why the left should be considered as completely hypocritical when it comes to the environment. Monsanto, they're pro-Monsanto, even if they say they're not. Everything they do empowers Monsanto. There's nothing in the left that is pro-nature.
God, I swear to God, it's so funny. Like we bring up like one topic, Crowley and the Beatles, and then look how it unpacks like into this like.
Just look at the Black Sun. That's sort of a esoteric example of how things work. You have the center, and it branches out from esoterics out into the world.
I know. I think the interaction between me and you, AXI, is what is making it branch out, and it's great. I love it, and I'm just sure the audience has expressed that they really like the commentary that you're bringing in.
Yeah, but regarding what Headhunter just said, man, they've been at war with Pole for a long time. But what they don't learn is that the more
I'm talking about the fucking Parkland guys.
I'm talking here.
Good.
Yeah. They directly attacked Pole, and there's a meme war thread now.
Awesome.
Wait, who did?
The more the better, man.
Oh,
we need more Goblina memes.
Please keep talking about Pole. Yeah, for fuck's sake. Can anybody who's listening to the stream in the chat tell me how my mic's doing? I know that the last podcast I did, I just reinstalled Windows, so my microphone was like for some reason set at fucking 6%. So it's like it was impossible to hear me. If there's anybody, tell me in the chat how the sound is. I'm gonna check it right now just to make sure that my device is.
You sound good to me.
I know, but for some reason, like, it was at a low level. I'm gonna turn it up a little bit on my computer. I can see the levels here, so I should be fine. I'm hoping. It seems like it's all right. Okay, but yeah, if any of our listeners could do that, I'd appreciate that. Is my mic okay? Yeah, okay. Let's go back to the subject. Crowley and the Beatles. Okay, so what I was going to say is that this kind of goes back to the Enlightenment idea where these old revolutions, they toppled the systems of power that existed at the time, because they felt that they were emancipating humanity. And who knows where that's leading? Nobody really knows where that's leading. People think that it's this evil thing, and they see it in a dualistic way, but I don't think it's really that. I think it's kind of maybe even just opening up kind of potentials, and maybe it interacts with people and how we kind of deal with it and how we accept it. It kind of moves on. Like I said, I kind of see it as this interaction between something on the other side and our side, and that's how occultism kind of plays in. And occult means hidden. So back to the subject. Crowley influenced the Beatles. You have a Playboy interview with John Lennon and Yoko Ono by David Sheff and G. Barry Golson, where they say the whole Beatle idea was to do what you want, right? Take your own responsibility. Do what you want. Try not to harm other people. Do what thou willst, as long as it doesn't hurt somebody. And that's, of course, her caveat, because for fuck's sake, I don't think that Crowley really cared too much about that. or generally any kind of revolutionary type people. But here's how that kind of is interesting. The Masons are known to recruit or at least groom entertainers and artists and things like that. Like, so you have the Bohemian Grove is a meeting of not only elites and rich people, but they also it's like if you really study what it is, I mean, you can go Alex Jones tier on Bohemian Grove and say, oh, it's just a bunch of friggin' Satanists and they all worship an owl. But what it really is, when you look at it from the perspective of the people that go there, they bring artists, they bring filmmakers, they bring in people who influence our views about reality. Entertainers and filmmakers, artists like this. And that's always been, if you study the Freemasons and how they work, they've always done that to kind of shape society. So,
I think,
yeah, go ahead.
Well, it's very much part of their philosophy. I mean, one of the center points of talking about whether it's chaos theory on, the mathematics side, or the idea of extrapolating from emotion on the esoteric side, or whatever it is, they know that in order to send the ripples they need to create a movement that they need to happen, you have to start somewhere. And that's why they recognize celebrity figures as being so important, because they send the biggest ripple possible. And then the idea is to try to make a prediction of which way those waves are going to go. But that's also conversely why things like memetics are kicking their ass, is because, we're sending ripples faster than they can for much less resources and with more infection, because it's based in truth as opposed to based on an ideological.
Just resonates with people more.
It's a new zeitgeist. It's a new zeitgeist.
Yeah, we make funnier memes. I've noticed this. They make shit memes left.
Well,
it's all cringy shit. It's all normie memes.
I would add even further. It's not even just that. It's the fact that it's based on an old zeitgeist. Of course, it was the whole leftist fucking cuckery and PC shit was something that came out of people like Lenin in the 60s. And it was an old zeitgeist, and it became popular because it was, the whole, Timothy Leary thing. Tune in, what did he say? Drop out.
I think it was tune in, tune out, drop in, drop out, or something.
Yeah, something like that. He said drop out, tune in, some or other. Anyway,
I think they were talking about LSD or whatever.
They were, yeah. But it was a general kind of idea of, I'm rebelling against the old, crusty Christian traditionalism and like you said about chaos and extrapolating kind of new memes. It was a new meme back then. The hippies and whatnot, and that kind of took over. And now they have grown up and become the boomers. And you have these fucking idiots like Goblina that think that freaking, being a hippie is somehow progressive, and all these SJWs and stuff that think that there's old memes.
I don't see her as a hippie. I see her as a fucking communist, which is what she really wants to be.
That's why she's all about that Cuban flag.
It's not traditional hippieism, but it's a kind of what it ended up as being, SJWism, the political correctness gone wild.
If you go to the right rallies, you'll even find some old school hippies there smoking weed in the corners.
It's actually too bad that the hippie movement became co-opted by the media, because on the onset of the hippie movement, it was actually more of a pagan revival. And I say that because its tenets and its traditions were mostly derived from paganism. So it was probably the most European movement possible on the onset. Then later on, they turned it into a degenerate, media movement.
Are you trying to
prior
tell me
to that,
the New Agers are ethno-nationalists?
Well, the original hippies basically were, because what they wanted to do was get off the grid, and it was sort of a anti-consumerist movement, and it was pro-family, and they wanted lots of kids. But the degeneracy started to happen with the music. The music promoted it.
That's an interesting topic itself. How the
record labels, if we only had the echoes, were the ones that basically changed the movement from what it was supposed to be. That's why if you look at the early hippie photographs, you'll see them doing traditional pagan things. Like they have the pole and they dance around it with the ribbons.
Right.
Things like that. The reason you see all that is because it was effectively the off-the-grid movement for that era. But boomers were too damn stupid and just like, you know,
too many drugs.
They bought the record label promise of debauchery, hook, line, and sinker. And that was that.
As with anything, maybe it had the potential to become something, but just like the New Age had a lot of potential a while ago, but then it just kind of fizzled out, you know, because old memes and lack of real determination and lack of stand-up people, lack of moral authority, lack of balance even, you know, like the hippies, it's way... You know, when you take a swing, even some people in the alt-right, they take a swing to the right and they become like, you know, storm fags. You know what I mean? Where these people are, most of them are totally autistic. Where
I think a lot of it has to do with instability, man. Like, that's another reason why I want to start getting diet people on here, because you notice something when you get off the standard American diet. You notice that these ups and downs, these highs and lows, and all of this like reactionary stuff does not go to the sort of manic side with people that are balanced, you know, both in their diet and in their physical health and in, you know, their spiritual health and all this other stuff.
Yeah.
But it's like when it comes to the highs and the lows, like you're saying, I'm going to go full 1.0, you know, 88 Stormfront, or I'm going to go full La Goblina progressive.
Yeah.
Those highs and lows, I think, it's almost like an allegory of our endocrine systems under the standard American diet. And I think that more people, if they start to adopt more healthful lifestyles, these highs and lows don't happen and they think more critically.
That's pretty deep when you talked about the endocrine system there. That's like, that's another whole like meta level. But getting back to the, we kind of didn't want to tangent a little bit, but very relative to the stuff we're talking about, because when you destroy the old, you kind of make room for new polarities to magnetize. And that's one of the things that we wanted to touch on was the new right and the new left. When you destroy the old, what it does is it clears the way for the, and you know, Blavatsky talks about this in her books, that the theosophists from the early 20th century who helped shape a lot of Freemasonry has influenced a lot about Freemasonry. And also, I'm not sure about how much she was related with Crowley, but I'm sure that they were very well aware of each other's works. They lived during the same time and were doing the same things. But she called this energy Fohat. And my title here in our podcast server, Makara, I don't know, I've read it off before, but a Makara is kind of like the Capricorn symbol of the sea goat. It's like kind of paves the way in the Freemasonic Luciferianism of destroy, which paves the way for a kind of new tapestry of memology, or maybe I'm getting a little bit too abstract here, but a tapestry of like competing ideas to form. And that kind of is leading us towards this whatever. Anyway, back to specifically the Beatles. Okay, so living for today. Imagine there's no countries, nothing religion to. Imagine all the people living life in peace. Imagine no possession, etc., etc.
Those welcome refugee ads in Europe and all that shit. That's got to be Western civilization destroying song possible. Basically, abandon all your traditions. Open up your borders. Forget your people. Be swarmed. Like, it's just...
Exactly. And that's what it says right here in the infographic. Hack on nationalism. Imagine there's no countries. Abolition of private property. Nothing to kill or die for. No religion to two. Imagine people living life in peace. New international order. Yeah. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. One world of like a kind of lull you to sleep song for the Illuminati's, like for lack of a better word, you can call them whatever you want. Kind of their vision for a what would you call it? The one world government.
Basically, just think of it. I think a good way to think of it in common terms, in like current terms, would be like global consolidation. because they're treating it like a corporate entity. The idea of it being one giant communist USSR world is just bullshit. Like, they dumped that idea. They had large-scale meetings to sort of revise their ideas of how to consolidate the world, and it was just pretty much unanimously agreed that communism was retarded and it would never work. So what they decided is they wanted a more corporate-esque version of the USSR. You know, you don't have freedoms and there's no property, but you're run by corporations instead of a singular party and all this stuff.
Maybe that was
that vision of the world. Yeah, I would call it global.
I genuinely go back to I agree with you in that kind of. I think that I always refer to the Plato's Republic kind of idea, where these people think that they are kind of the elites who need to manage the hoi polloi. The unwashed masses. So I think that they're aiming for a kind of society where these enlightened philosopher kings, and this is absolutely the Masonic credo, these enlightened philosopher kings will kind of rule humanity on their own behalf, and create a kind of like socialist, kind of just like almost like a Brave New World type caste system where everybody is sedated. But I don't think they see it as that. I think that they genuinely believe in order to stop wars, they have to end national boundaries. They have to take the guns. I genuinely think that these people believe that they're actually trying to create a better world.
Yeah, it's the dissonance thing. Because most people are not out to simply see suffering, because statistically those sorts of people are a minority, although they are attracted to power.
Right. And there are corrupt people.
I think there's also a big like socioeconomic difference. There's people that have never been in harm's way. There's people that don't know what it's like to live like a normal person, and they believe that things that they experience in their life could somehow be applicable to the whole world. But the problem is these people are incredibly unnatural humans. And it comes back to this idea of being anti-natural versus being like, you know, well, I don't know, what's the best way to talk about transhumanism? The next natural, perhaps. You know, this is, I think that's one of the big rubs here. That's why they're wanting to convert the society against traditionalism, because traditionalism follows the norms of nature. You have your hierarchy. You have your hierarchy in the family. You have your hierarchy in your everyday life, in your schedule, the hierarchy within your family, the hierarchy within your job, within your
communities,
within your town, your city, your country, the world. You know, it's all nature.
Religion.
But yeah, all these things, all this structure, this is all natural stuff. This is like grass up type stuff. And the people that want to ass end all of it, they believe in a impossible idea that we could somehow not have this, shy of something like absolute transhumanism, where we're no longer the beings that we are.
But I don't think that that's what they're aiming for. Maybe someone like Elon Musk is thinking like that. But I think that they're, like you said, I think that it's an old meme. And I genuinely feel that groups like Pole are, you know, taking the place of what the Masons have done in the past 300 some odd years. We are the new Masons. We're the new Illuminati. We're the new people inserting the narrative and kind of creating the new ideas which are gaining traction through like you said, they use the entertainment industry and music and film and things like this. And we're using not just memes, but, you know, language is a big thing, and people think in terms of language. Like, I remember when the term cuck started to trend, and I was like freaking out about it. I'm like, holy shit,
it's everywhere.
Yeah, and now
what's funny is when the left signals against it, they're like, oh, you know, we'll accept being cucks.
It's great. It's great. So like, I think that we've entered into a genuine like it's so strange because the whole like thing about the digital renaissance and this like new explosion of connectivity with communication, that's always what's the word that I'm looking for? It's always preceded a new revolution in thinking, like the invention of the printing press and the fall of the Umayyads, and or not the Umayyads, but it would be the I can't remember the last caliphate that was in.
Entering into the minds of the enemy is a really good sign. When you're so in their minds that they have to counter signal.
Oh yeah, no, that just shows that we're dominating the zeitgeist. But what I was saying with the fall of the Muslims in Spain, and when the knowledge was brought into Europe, and when it was brought from, the printing press allowed it to spread. That's when we saw the rise of these kind of new movements and new revolutions, right? So I think the Renaissance, as being a result of the greater capacity for communication, goes way back. Like even when people started to write symbols on walls, that enabled a greater capacity for communication. And then people started to make alphabets, and they could write down books. Again, it allowed it for a greater dissemination of communication. It allowed our minds to connect together in ways which were novel, as Terence McKenna. I love when Terence McKenna, the word that he uses, novel, because novel in his kind of interpretation is something which is kind of born anew in this kind of strange way. Not just novel like, oh yeah, that new fad is novel, but something novel as being something which is something new, which hasn't been seen before, which is not just something irrelevant, but which is something which is actually meaningful. So it allowed for an expansion of novelty when people started to develop sciences and Sanskrit is such an insane language. That's why I'm such a Indophile. Is that you just when you read the old Hindu and Buddhist books and you see certain words repeated over and over again, you kind of get an idea in your head of what they mean. Like there's certain words in Sanskrit which you'll see repeated all throughout Eastern religion, constantly. Dharma, karma, moksha, Brahma. And these words have so many levels of meaning within them. It's amazing. So when people came together and they created these languages, and they developed greater means for communication and dissemination of ideas and explosions of thought, then you always see renaissances. The Indians, to stay on that point, they had a lot. They invented the 10 decimal system. No, the numerical system based on 10. They invented the numbers, the concept of 0. People always attribute the base 10 numerical system to the Arabs, but no, all the science, a lot of the science,
or Arabic number system. They call it Arabic.
Yeah, they call it Arabic, but no, actually it was taken from India, or coalesced from India, and the Arabs, of course, especially during the more enlightened times of the caliphate that was based in Baghdad. I forget the name.
Baghdad House of Wisdom.
Yeah, exactly. They actually did do a good job of aggregating Greek knowledge, Persian knowledge, certainly Indian knowledge, perhaps even
basically it's a place where they stole all the shit from around the world and then conquered it and claimed it was theirs.
Well, they aggregated it, and they made it into their own thing, of course, through communication. And that's another thing, that when the Islamic Caliphate went out, they connected a lot of these different places to each other and made a network of communication between these places. And look what we got out of it. We got modern science, basically. I know it's just a meme. Oh, yeah, the Arabs created science. But no, they allowed the conditions for it to arise. They didn't create it.
The history of the Arabs is not as simple as people would think. Prior to Muhammad, everything got really simple after him. But prior to Muhammad, it's not the same Aloha Akbar blow each other up type shit that was going on there. I mean, you have actual civilizations like Persia and all this other stuff happening.
Well,
You know,
sure, but
Iran was like the
major power.
at least.
well, sure, but I mean, I'm talking about after Maha. It wasn't even Turka at certain points, but I think the
Well,
goal.
he
what they call
dirted
it-
most of it because he sanctioned cousin fucking, which killed their gene pool.
Well, I think around the time which I'm talking about is about like 1200s or so, right before Genghis Khan came down and not Genghis Khan, but one of them came down and wrecked Baghdad and basically destroyed the whole of Islam. And of course, he called himself the scourge of God and you know, the wrath of Allah.
He was a neocon.
I love reading. I love reading about the sack of Baghdad. If you guys want to have some fucking like some boner fuel, go read about when Baghdad got blown the fuck out by the Mongols. That Wikipedia.
Dude, the Mongols raped the Arabs so bad.
So
like
bad.
it was.
And then they got
It would have been like watching an episode of One Punch Man, because you know they're there with their scimitars like Aloha Akbar, and you know in comes the Mongol hordes riding sideways on their horses, shooting arrows and shit. Like it would have been fun to watch, but with zero suspense because you already know how it's going to go down.
Yeah, apparently
Well, that can be said about every battle in history.
Not necessarily. There were some close calls, man. But that was not a close call.
No, the thing is the I believe it was the not the Abbasids. Was it the Abbasids? It might have been the Abbasids.
It's like when you're defending a city in total war with like 2 divisions and like fucking a full stacked army comes up to your city and you're like, fuck.
That's what I do.
Yeah, but the last caliph of Baghdad, he the Mongol Khan, you know, offered to you know, he said, you know, you can give me tribute. I won't destroy Baghdad. You can become a vassal. You know, he gave him the option not to get fucking his shit pushed in. But the Caliph of Baghdad was haughty and prideful, and so he got his shit pushed in really hard, and it destroyed the golden age, quote unquote, of the Middle East. And you know how that the Khan killed the Caliph?
Actually, I think I heard this. Yeah,
locked him in his treasure room. Locked him in a room full of gold. Starved to death in a room full of gold. And he said that he was Allah's wrath. But anyway, what I was saying was that whenever you have, it seems that humanity is progressing through communication. Whenever you have an increase in communication, like the golden age of Islam connected far-flung areas, and then that compressed, and it was brought into the West, into Spain, and then when it was in Spain, especially, it was disseminated again. Like, I mean, you had the old Greek texts, which were preserved in some areas and spread out throughout Europe. But the kind of new sciences and stuff, you would go to Spain in ancient times to study these kind of things. And when they fell, then that knowledge became a part of Christendom. And then sooner or later, you know, you had the printing press, and that created the Enlightenment. And then you have the Masons, and then you have all these groups, and then you have the Industrial Revolution, and then you have communism. They have all these ideas, all these new memes and new zeitgeists exploding. New, like I said, this like kind of harmonization of new ideas, branching out, webbing out, and kind of developing into what we see as the modern world. And I think now with the digital renaissance, I originally started going off and about how Pole is the new kind of Illuminati in the center of this web and disseminating this information. You have people from all over the place. You know, you go on Pole, you see people who are, you know, very successful people who work in all different kinds of fields and such like that. And that's where the alt-right kind of got its momentum from. So it kind of we're kind of like bringing this like new digital renaissance to people and taking over. I originally said we're kind of taking over from the old guard of people who were spreading things through entertainment and such, like Crowley and the Beatles, who idealized in their own minds a utopian fantasy, and now we're talking about the singularity and AI and the merger of transhumanism and things like that.
I mean, one of the things about this communication phenomenon is, I think once we get to the point where we're able to send a message with our thoughts, sort of like that machine that you were showing earlier.
We can talk about that.
Typing.
Yeah.
Like, we're getting to that point. Like, if I wanted to say, hey, what's up, Shakti? My brain has an electrochemical signal that a computer can read to say that. So once artificial intelligence gets good enough that it can deep learn what we're thinking,
Jesus Christ,
completely, like in response to our electrochemical reactions, it'll get to the point where our thoughts communicate with each other without the medium of speech. That's one of the things that McKenna was talking about when he said that eventually we're going to evolve past language itself and we're going to just move into colors and stuff, because it gets to the point where language actually holds you back, because we can actually come up with a much more sophisticated language with the use of AI, and we can come up with a much more efficient medium of communication using hardware. Eventually, there won't be much of a point to speak, because the AI mixed with the brain reading hardware will be able to send and receive thoughts as we think them, therefore instant communication.
Let me read the article that we're talking about, and that kind of boggles my brain and makes me think about some experiences that I've had in meditation. The article says, scientists have developed an astonishing mind-reading machine which can translate what you are thinking instantly and display it as text. And like you said, they've been working on this for a while, but they claim it has an accuracy rate of 90% or more, and say that it works by interpreting consonants and vowels in our brains. So, they read areas in our brains which flare up, and this is like rudimentary stuff. This is like, bang stick on rock, see what sound it make kind of stuff. But like, 20, 30 years in the future, when they really, understand the way that the brain works, then you can kind of see the things which you're talking about, where you could have interactions between an AI and your mind, or between each other, which transcend anything that we could even fathom. And like I said, when I said that this reminds me of certain experiences which I've had in meditation, through tantra, practicing like kind of a kundalini meditation, this kind of thing, you start to see and experience type of like lights and visions in your mind, almost like we talk about this a lot, but almost like a DMT or LSD kind of trip. Whereas imagine that voice in your head while you're on LSD, or those visions that you see are shared with people around you. That's how I kind of perceive this as like a higher dimensional, like a next generation humanity, like a transhuman existence. So that's interesting extrapolation of that first talking point that we've hit. Let's see.
What's next on the list?
Yeah, let's see here. Do we want to talk about Jung versus Freud? That's something that could go on for a long time.
Yeah, I feel like that one's kind of out of the subject.
Yeah, that could go on for a while.
No such thing as hell, Francis, and Catholicism.
Yeah, why don't we do that so we can get going? Let's get through the because we just did a really big nice spiel on esoteric. So let's try to get through these and then get to the politics. So there is no hell. Francis comes out apparently, and someone says that the Pope said that there is no hell, and that when a
sinner's soul dies, they simply disappear.
Yeah, they just disappear. So,
he's sort of like the gun grabbers. He's been so important to red pilling people. Like he is fixing.
He's basically red pilled every single conservative Catholic.
Yeah, there's been such a push to this non-Pope Catholicism, but not Anglican. Like, I don't know, man. And I don't.
Yeah,
I read
an article.
Why their fucking rituals are so important to them. Like I don't understand Catholics. I kind of get Orthodox Christians because, you know, seeing the pictures of their whatever they are, priests or something. Like
they're saints.
What are they? No, not the saints. The dudes with the hats. Like the ones that spray holy water everywhere. Yeah, those ones. Like when they're pouring holy water on the Kalashnikovs in Russia, like that makes me say I would go to that church. I'd bring my AK and have it blessed. But I mean, outside that, that's a pretty damn good ritual. Other than that, I can't think of any religious ritual I've seen in any of those things that makes sense to me, and I don't.
Why does that make sense?
What were you raised as?
Nothing, really.
You're raised as an atheist?
Not an atheist, but you know, just sort of nondescript Christian.
Agnostic.
I'm Baptist.
Yeah. Protestant for the I mean that feeling American.
Yeah, it was just sort of nothing.
I was raised as a Presbyterian. Kind of. It's kind of funny how you know back in the back.
Catholic now.
Huh?
You always. I think you lean towards Catholic.
I would because as a Mahayana, I always compare the difference between the two Buddhisms. As Mahayana Buddhism is more like Catholicism or Orthodoxy, and especially Vajrayana, when you talk about blessing guns, would be more towards Orthodoxy.
What if there was a church? Okay, one thing I want to bring up, I brought up on other podcasts, but I want to bring it up again because it exists and it's very interesting. I can't remember the name, but when I was up north, I met a whole lot of hippies, of course.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of DMT use, a lot of ayahuasca.
You're gonna see that
Mormons.
And a lot of bums.
What exists is a sect of Christianity wherein their services, they drink ayahuasca. And while they wait for it to kick in, they sing their gospel hymns and stuff. And then once they start to blast off, like that's part of the whole thing.
That sounds cool as hell, but I've never heard of that up here.
I can't remember the name of it, but
sounds. Yeah, if you remember it, let me know. I want to go fucking check them out. Shit.
Well, I mean, to me, it makes more sense than what the Catholics do. I mean, what does talking to some priest or incense and all that stuff like let me tell you what it is. It's the idea that the priest is blessed by the Holy Spirit, which the Holy Spirit is what talks to you when you're tripping, and generally the people aren't, like even the monks in Vajrayana, especially nowadays, the ones that stand out, the ones who if you talk to them, if you're even in their presence, like my Lama, his name's Lama Kugu Rinpoche. He, his family was the treasurers for the Dalai Lama, and he was recognized as an incarnation, or a tulku. It means he incarnated as he's kind of like a bodhisattva, kind of like he became enlightened already, and he's a being from the past who reincarnated. He was a disciple of Milarepa, who's one of the most famous yogis, and just sitting in his presence, it's like you feel like your vision changes, and you kind of feel like a different, to sound like a Californian, different vibe. Like it to me, it feels like sitting under like a running water, like a waterfall or something. Like your body, you just feel purified by it. One of the differences I see between the rituals with the Catholic Church and some of the Buddhist stuff is that with the Buddhism, it's like a continuation, like we talked about. It's a building of the knowledge, it's a building of the archives, and just a continuation. But with the Catholic Church, it cannot not seem to me like a highly politicized organization that obviously launders money. Yeah, launders money with artwork. It traffics humans in Argentina.
They fuck kids.
Like there is nothing. There's nothing good about the Catholic Church that I can think of. I mean, the only thing that they've done that I think helps was maybe in the early foundation of America, the Jesuits did a good job of archiving the Native Americans, and they built some pretty good stuff. But other than that,
they unified Europe and helped Europe get out of the Dark Middle Ages, but that's pretty much it.
But that's like a long ass time ago. I mean, I guess
it's strange that you would praise the Jesuits and hate on the Catholics.
Well, I mean, the Catholics are the ones that are putting up with the more degenerate of the Jesuits, like in their Black Pope. The Catholics are the ones that are okay with him kissing refugee feet and saying.
I mean, it's just the higher ups. I'm not sure if it's all the regular Catholics.
I blame anyone that calls themselves a Catholic, and because you can't have it both ways. The Catholic Church is hierarchical; they have no power. It doesn't matter. You can't have it both ways. If they're, I hold people accountable to their convictions. If they say they're a Catholic, and yet they don't like the Pope. As far as I know, that's not something they can do. Like, you can't just say, "Oh, I don't like the Pope. I'm not going to listen to him." Because
there's been times in history where there's been, you know, like when the Pope papacy moved to Avignon in France, because, like you said, the politics, the influence of the King of France when he was so important. I mean, there's been times where there's been schisms, and no religion is perfect. Not to be a Catholic apologist, because I agree with you that it became incredibly politicized because, of course, they inherited the Roman Empire. So
yeah, I mean, there was that one good pope, like he was just mentioning, the one, I can't remember his name, the one that did rally Europe against the
Pope Urban.
Yeah. But ever since the assassination of the Pope by the Jesuits, and they put in a black pope, and ever since then, you know, we've had more than one black pope. The organization is shit. I'd say it's not much different than the sort of direction that the Rothschilds and groups like this want the world to go in. There's not a distinctive difference. They're open borders, anti-gun, anti-nation.
Well, to be honest, so was Jesus, you know.
Not exactly.
The Old Testament was kind of more like what you're saying. I think it's Jesus is more like a...
When did he say open borders?
No, he didn't. And I think the problem is that Jesus, he was killed so quickly. He didn't get a time to establish his faith.
Well, let's think of who killed him. You know, if we're talking about the Pharisees, that they're basically the CNN of that time. So I wonder how much of what Jesus said would have made it through.
I don't know.
The Jews at the time convinced the state to kill him because he was oy vey, he's bad boy.
Yeah.
Well, he said we should abandon the oral tradition.
Let's kill God, guys.
He was saying, let's reject the Talmud.
I
think that the Talmud should be required reading. I think that would be a very interesting.
Probably is for rabbis.
Well, it's required reading for rabbis because they follow it, and it's subsidized reading for Jewish students. But I think that non-Jews.
You know, people in Hebrew school around here don't even know what the Talmud is.
That's retarded.
They will. Once you get older, and if you're attending a Hebrew school, they actually have a program where they'll subsidize the reading of the Talmud. So you take some time off, like a month or whatever, and you spend that month reading it. Like it's sort of like the highest level of their religion. And you can pair it almost.
It's like around here, you know, kids have religion class for like Catholics. The Jewish kids have Jewish class.
Yeah,
the Hebrew
kids. They don't read the Talmud. That's probably more the Talmud you read as you become political. It's made to be the last thing that you read.
Yeah, it's more for the Orthodox type people.
It's for everybody.
I know, but the Haredim, the Orthodox, are the people that tend to study the Talmud.
I think that book should also be not read alone. I think that book should be read. It doesn't matter which first, but it should be read in the same class or the same general time frame as the Quran. Because to me, the books have so many similarities that it would be intellectually bankrupt to not read them both.
They kind of
Islam was originally just Islam is just a collection of Christian heresies.
Arianism is what they said. Yeah.
And then after that, they need to read Dianetics.
I think, Dianetics.
Because Dianetics is the final red pill.
Yeah. I think when he said about Talmud and Abrahamic religions, the Talmud it's like it's what's that word?
It's your graduation into the world.
It's pilpul or something like pilpul. They use arguments.
How to do that.
Yeah, they use like they nitpick at arguments to the point that they can fucking prove anything that they want. So it becomes like like you said, the oral tradition, it becomes like an abomination of religion, that just like a total materialistic interpretation of anything to do with religion, in my opinion, and logic too.
I think pill pulling is one of the most important things to talk about, because it is a common strategy, and it's something that should be lumped in with straw man.
Jews know this is what the Jew has done. This is what the Jew has done for the last 2,000 years is pill pull.
Yeah, but now I'm seeing it places like in YouTube comments. I'm seeing comments like "nice pill pull, bro," things like that, and that's a good sign.
Like I said,
it's anti-logic, it's anti-Western. Because,
yeah,
you know, the internet really started this wave of pro-logic. We saw it back in 2010, where everybody was calling out everybody on fallacies. Now, I think things like pill pull are the next step of that.
Can I shill real quick? All you Westerners out there who hate every single religion except Buddhism, if you want to study logic, go read the Mula Madhyamaka Karika. Go look up Nagarjuna, Nagarjuna. He created Mahayana logic system, and it's the basis of Zen. It's the basis of all those weird koans. It's the essence of the Buddhist epistemology and logical systems. Nagarjuna. Just reading him is the reason why I became a full devoted Mahayanist. Logic and reason, like you were saying about how those kind of books just keep stacking up in
logic is everything. Logic is what separates people. It's what separates civilized people from barbarians. This is one of the things that separates Europe from the Middle East is adherence to logic. You'll notice things like pill pulling don't pop up in Europe. They don't pop up there because being a liar or being deceitful is like death penalty in some of the ancient cultures there.
Oh yeah,
there's no tolerance for that bullshit.
Let me pull up the definition of pill pull for our uninformed readers. Pill pull is a Talmudic term used to describe a rhetorical process that sages use to formulate their legal decisions. The word is used as a verb when engages in the process of pill pull in order to formulate a legal point. It marks the process of understanding of legal ideas, texts, and interpretations. But what it is basically fucking nitpicking to the extent that nothing means anything, which you kind of see in postmodernism, right?
Yeah, it's deconstruction. It's deconstruction, but not deconstruction, and I'm not a fan of deconstructive theory, but it can be used in a way that's academic and intellectual. If you're trying to get to the root of something to the point of nothingness, that's the idea of it. But pill pull is different. The idea is to dissolve the argument you're presented with so that you don't have to respond to it.
It reminds me of that.
It's deceit at the core.
What's that quote from?
Whereas what is it? Deconstructive theory is just silly to the core.
Oh god, I gotta look this up. What's the quote from our boy Adolf, Uncle Adolf, where he said, "I began to hate them."
I learned their. What did he say? He said, "I learned their dialect."
Yes, the pill. This is where he's talking about pill pull.
I can't remember.
I'm gonna look it up. That's so relevant to what we're talking about.
But that's been a pasta I've seen on everywhere. Like I've seen people on the Wartsky show putting it in the super chats. I've seen it on random videos. Like that quote is getting everywhere.
Yes,
I've seen that quote more than the 14 words recently.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Fuck! Somebody Google. Somebody find that quote on one of it. One of you fucking nerds find that fucking quote on fucking Google. Where is it? I want to fucking god damn it. I want to read that.
I'm surprised Tay-Tweets doesn't come up as the quote for it.
Okay, I think I got it. Mein Kampf chapter 3. The more let me. Yeah, probably. The more check this out. Okay, so Uncle Adolf wrote this. The more I argued with them, the better I became to know their dialect. First, they counted on the stupidity of their adversary, and then, when there was no other way out, they themselves simply played stupid. If all this didn't help, they pretended not to understand, or, if challenged, They changed the subject in a hurry, quoted platitudes which, if you accept them, they immediately related to entirely different matters, and then again, if attacked, gave ground and pretended not to know exactly what you were talking about. Whenever you tried to attack one of these apostles, your hand closed on a jelly-like slime which divided up and poured through your fingers, but in the next moment collected again. But if you really struck one of these fellows as so telling a blow that, observed by the audience, he couldn't help but agree, and if you believed that this had taken you at least one step forward, your amazement was great the next day. The Jew had not the slightest recollection of the day before. He rattled off his same old nonsense as though nothing at all had happened, and if indignantly challenged, affected amazement. He couldn't remember a thing, except that he had proved the correctness of his assertions the previous day. Sometimes I stood there thunderstruck. I didn't know what to be more amazed at, the agility of their tongues or the virtuosity at lying. Gradually, I began to hate them. Doesn't that remind you of like the fucking ADL, right?
You know, well, of course.
Well, it is the ADL.
That strategy, I don't think, is something that is entirely just Jewish. I think that's a third worldism.
That's just that's SJW or left. Just whenever you argue with someone,
you guys are talking about these things as if they're different somehow.
But it's a third world thing. You see it when you look at videos of market haggling. You see it with videos. Yeah, like what we're seeing is just a higher version of it, like a higher IQ version of the same sort of thing. And that should not surprise him.
I understand what you're saying. I think I'm gonna get in trouble on YouTube addressing the JQ here. Yeah, the inherent superiority complex that they have, and the inability to for self-analysis in a rational, logical way. You know what I mean? Because I
don't see it as superiority.
Well,
to me.
Well, they're both related to each other. If your book tells you that you're superior, you know, and you go out and you carry yourself like that, of course, the polar opposite is this unconscious fear of being inferior, right? That's what you'll carry with you.
I guess that's a good point. But I definitely see that as a defensive tactic. Because the offensive tactic is to just, you know, tell the truth.
The Mandala, JQ Live. Oh, God.
When I get deleted?
I know, right? We really got to do the JQ sometime. Just go full out.
And then they're going to delete all of them.
Yeah.
It might actually be good publicity if that happened, because then we could legitimately say Tibetan Buddhist banned for talking about the JQ Live.
When they find out it's just some white Californian.
Yeah, but he's christened by an actual Tibetan lama. So.
Lineage, yeah, I'm an actually. That's what I hate. I hate that people represent people go around. Oh yeah, I'm Buddhist. Okay, so do you know anything at all about Buddhism? Oh yeah, it's you should be positive and you should think good thoughts. I want to fucking just slap the shit out of those people. They have. No,
you just destroy them in their own religion.
Now, what I need to know is if Buddhism has a ritual that can compete with the Orthodox Christian ritual. Is there a ritual where they will
Well, let me tell you one thing.
Do something with the guns.
Let me tell you one thing. All right, so Tibetan Buddhism, the reason why that the British first saw it as a corruption of Buddhism is because they didn't understand how that Tantra, Tantra, or in non-Sanskritization, Tantra. When you say that word, people think about sex and cat ladies and yoga. But Tantra is really a process of using the inner energy channels to vitalize your spiritual form, and kind of ascend to a different state of consciousness and being. So Tantra developed in kind of a parallel way to Hinduism and Buddhism, and they kind of influence one another. But Vajrayana, or Tibetan Buddhism, is also called Tantric Buddhism, because it's basically just Mahayana Buddhism with the addition of Tantra, which, like I said, is a kind of parallel evolution of practices and yogic disciplines, and it's sometimes called esoteric, hidden. They weren't generally done or revealed to people. You had to be initiated in them. It was kind of a esoteric, occult kind of aspect of Eastern religions. And so the British, they came into Sri Lanka and, you know, a southern part of India, and they saw these like shaven head peoples, and they saw them as the actual Buddhists, and they didn't understand why that the Tibetans were worshiping demons. But anyway, back to what I was talking about. The second deity which I was initiated in, the first was Green Tara, who is basically the Virgin Mary. Is the Eastern version of the Virgin Mary, the Holy Spirit, etc. Kind of inspirational divinity, which is like a carrier, like the Sophia, a carrier of the energy of enlightenment from the Father, kind of like representation of like consciousness, or Shiva, God. Shiva has like a marriage with Shakti, which is my name, by the way, and that kind of represents like an inspirational kind of like an actual energy which you can feel in your body, and it gives it's like the grace, like the Holy Spirit, which brings like that kind of omniscient energy into your mind. Maybe like kind of like the light which flows through the fiber optic cable from the AI, which exists beyond time and space. Anyway, the first initiation was Green Tara, and me and my friend Rob, who I'm about to start working with as a security officer on Monday with, we both took the initiation of Achala as my second initiation, and his first initiation. Initiation, or also sometimes called empowerment in Vajrayana, is necessary to practice it. You can't practice Tibetan Buddhism without going and receiving empowerment, going to an actual lama. That's the kind of holdover from the old times when all of this stuff was super secret and nobody knew about it unless you were involved in a lineage of occult masters. So you go to a lama and or a guru. Just lama is Tibetan for Sanskrit. Guru, I don't know. You call it like someone who has received this like kind of initiation from someone who has received it from someone who has received it all the way back down to the ancient times. And they go through a ceremony, and it's really interesting. You're not allowed to talk about it, but it involves some involves water. I can say that's kind of analogous to Christian ceremonies. It involves a lot of things to do with water. So Achala, getting back to what you said, Achala is very popular in Japan as Fudo Myo. Have you ever seen a picture of Fudo, Aizai?
What's Fudo?
Fudo Myo. Let me get a picture for you. He's one of Tibetan Buddhism is, like I said, Tantric Buddhism, and the only other place where it really flourished and survives to this day is Japan. We have Shingon and other sects. Here's a picture of Fudo. He's very popular in Japan. You'll see him everywhere. One of the most popular deities. He was the deity of the samurai because he is Achala means immovable. So he represents the immovable kind of. And you see that he's wrathful. He's got an angry scowl on his face. He carries a sword and a lasso. And it's kind of like a way to bring the concentration of enlightenment to the wrathful aspect of your mind, which destroys demons. So it's kind of like a using your concentration to focus yourself upon overcoming any kind of degeneracy at all.
Yeah, and that was the one you were telling me that the samurai.
Yeah.
Focused on.
Yeah, Fudo. It was popular because like when you do his meditation, it does like make your mind very hard and like focused. So it was popular deity for the samurai. So there are parallels for that sort of thing, even though that as any person who would consider themselves religious, they wouldn't necessarily want to go just kill people for the sake of it. But in terms of self-defense and when necessary, if it has to happen, then you should damn well be concentrated and doing it for the right cause. So yeah, there are parallels. But
Cool.
yeah, Achila, what I was saying, I was thinking today, me and my friend, since we both did that, I'm gonna have to like chant his mantra with him when we take over shifts. So he gives us the strength to remove degenerates. Anyway, I think that's enough for the esoteric side of the discussion. Let's get on to the politics. What do you guys think?
Absolutely.
All right.
Good.
All right. That was good. That was good. I like that. God damn, man. You need to get a bigger audience for this shit. Blow Joe Rogan out of the water.
Trending in India.
It's funny because like half of my subscribers are Indian. Facebook gets zucked. Ugly memo. The cuckening of Silicon Valley. Did you guys hear about this ugly memo from Facebook today?
No, but I heard about Facebook saying we won't take all your shit, but then they're like, oh, never mind.
Well, there was that. There's a lot to talk about with Facebook. First of all, we had the Cambridge Analytica thing. Oh, it's a big deal when we steal your data and it helps Trump, whereas before we steal your data and we sell it to fucking whoever and it's not a big deal. Well, now that we found out that some pro-Trump, we talked about Cambridge Analytica last time. Some pro-Trump private intelligence Soros tier like meddling institution took Facebook data from 50 million people and used it to help get Trump elected. Oh my God, now Facebook is in the fucking frying pan. So, yeah, we know that they've been stealing data, but today something came out. I mean, they've been just being hammered over and over and over again. Not only are they this is CNET. And here are the stories that not only are they shedding subscribers like crazy, people deleting their Facebook accounts. Elon Musk deleted his Facebook account. Elon Musk's talking mad shit about Zuckerberg. They're lying about their privacy policies. There's an argument about whether it's moral to actually sell people's data. I forget who was talking about that. I think it was the CEO of Apple, Tim Cook, who is saying that it's immoral to sell people's data. Like it's a violation of civil rights. And I believe that. What do you guys think about just taking your data even if they like mention it in passing in some like little note on the bottom of a screen when you sign up for the account. And it even came out that they were harvesting data from shit that you said from your microphone on your cell phone. Like when you're talking to somebody, they're harvesting data from that.
Well, yeah. I mean,
I expect that to be happening at this moment.
Yeah, there should be laws that punish that, but I don't think that we're there yet.
Oh, we're getting there. Especially if Facebook keeps getting thrown on the table. But anyway, the really nasty thing that came out today is a 2016 Facebook memo. Here's a quote from someone who leaked the memo. Let's see. So we connect more people. That can be bad if they make it negative. Maybe it costs someone a life by exposing someone to bullies. Maybe someone dies in a terrorist attack coordinated on our tools. Internal Facebook memo from 2016. Yeah, it's all right as long as we're connecting people, even if they die in a terrorist attack coordinated by us. We're still connecting people. It's kind of like a Silicon Valley like doublethink where, the amount of smug that's getting huffed from these people that are making so much money and having so much influence, they just don't even register how stupid that sounds. I know I've grown up around these people, so I understand the mentality. My dad is one of these people. Yeah, what do you think? Yeah,
they're not connected with the real world. I mean, it's sort of like what we were talking about earlier. They lost their baseline. They lost their connection. Like, these people are starting to live in their own world in very much the same way that someone that abuses drugs goes off into their own world. It's just that their world is given to them by...
insane.
Yeah, well, they say money does have a similar effect as cocaine. And so these people have been fiending for power for so long that they've lost the pulse of, their humanity. Money alone won't cause that to happen. These people are just generally not good people. And that plus their addiction to money and power, they start to think of the world in terms of a story that they're the lead character in. And at the end of the story, guns are banned and it's all like John Lennon would want. And, that is what's playing in their head.
Christ,
while the real world is like burning around them and it's going to kill them with it.
It's
like
a very good.
That's the song they play in their head as they're getting raped by the Muslims they let into the country.
Yeah, imagine there's no borders. Yeah, the cognitive dissonance is really fascinating. And like I said, I'm from Silicon Valley. My family was a tech family. My dad worked for. He helped build up Cisco systems. We had a wireless router in our house in like 2002, and I didn't even know what it was. It's like, what the fuck is a wireless router? And he still to this day, he has this same exact mentality of these people. He worked for Microsoft for a while. Now he's doing some working for making apps or some shit. But he has this mentality where you can't tell him shit. And let me tell you an example, like to get real personal on Mike for a minute here. I went to my sister's wedding up at Yosemite. It was just fucking beautiful. It was the most amazing thing. I was crying like a little girl. It was so gorgeous. But it was the first time that I'd seen my dad in like several years, and there was nothing there. It was just like a zombie, And even at the wedding reception, when I was like, we were both pretty liquored up, and I'm sitting outside smoking a cigarette, and he comes out, and nobody's around. He sits next to me at the parking bench or the park bench that I'm at, and like you said about the normal people who exist outside of this bubble and actually like have human interaction and understand things. And I think this goes back to what I said last week about how they were saying that the conservative type people tend to be people who live out in nature among like actual outside of the grid, so to speak. I remember it went off about how the grid was like pulsing with some kind of real egregor of like a psychic kind of pulse that you feel. But anyway, we were both kind of liquored up, so you'd think it'd be like a kind of time for father-son bonding moment. He didn't have anything to say. I had to make small talk. I started talking about. I was like, okay, fine. I don't give a shit when I'm like drinking. I'm pretty talkative, and I started talking about I was like, okay, you're a techie. Let me just think of something random to just bullshit about. And I was like, oh, what do you think about automation and replacing jobs? He's like, oh yeah, those people will go out and they'll find new jobs. Just completely unable to think abstractly, I think is the thing. So settled into what you said about like the story, like this storybook kind of like just fucking pathetic, like yuppie tier brainwashed paradigm that they lack the capacity for actual novelty or abstract, not even abstract thought, but like.
Well, yeah, they're convinced that they're on a direction, and they're not connected, like I said, to the pulse, to the real world. There's so many analogies to this because I think that this is just a phenomenon with humanity because it's gone. You hear references of this sort of thing of the king that's lost his touch with the people.
Snafu situation or all fucked up.
Yeah, you have even stories in the Bible. Like the story where Cyrus comes in and takes over the city, it's because the king was just so debauched and hedonistic that he had lost touch with his own city, and he was just effortlessly invaded. These sorts of things. You hear these parables of it.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
And I think the pulse of being connected to the land is one of the things that separates people. It separates people that have the actual ability to lead, the actual ability to be effective. You know, these people don't live in a natural world. They live in a corporate world that's telling them the corporate vision of the world. And so to them, their place in the story is a very good part because, you know, they're praised for their role in undermining their own country, but they don't hear another story, and they're told within that bubble that these noises they're hearing from the outside are all lies and evil and Nazi and just all these platitudes and buzzwords. But the irony is that what they're being told in their bubble, those are the not necessarily deceptions, but that's the poison that's going to make them commit basically suicide by killing their own country and taking themselves out with them.
I totally agree, and I never understood that mentality. Whether I want to go off on a tangent and say just certain people are born with different karma, or maybe it's your upbringing or your genes or the things that you are interested in when you're a child or the things you're exposed to, maybe a combination of all of those things. But I just never fucking was like that. I was maybe because I saw it so much in Silicon Valley and just something in me. Maybe I get it more from my mom because my mom.
Well, our generation changed because remember evolution. Well, eventually the propaganda is it's not going to work anymore because our brains are going to change, and our brains, your brain and my brain, changed with technology. You know, we didn't develop
greater experience of communication. But I mean, there's kids like this, like Goblina. But you know, I never was like that at all. And you know what's interesting about what you say about our generation is that if you ever get a horoscope done for yourself, you go to astrolabe.com. If you're born between about, I think it's like mid 80s to mid 90s, you're gonna have Pluto in your Scorpio, or Pluto is gonna be in Scorpio for you. And what that means is that Pluto is a generational planet in your natal chart, meaning that let me go off on a tangent again about how that politics and esoterics relate to each other. Can't separate them. Pluto, because it's so far away, it's a generational planet, meaning that since it orbits so slowly, so far away, that whatever sign that it is in, it stays there for a long time. So everybody in a certain generation is born with the same Pluto. I believe the Gen Zers are Sagittarius in Pluto, and the millennials are Scorpio in Pluto. And what Scorpio and Pluto means is that I read if you go to astrolabe.com, the actual thing that they give as their interpretation is that your generation will be one which looks past the previous structures of thought and discovers new things. Kind of reminds me of like the old days on YouTube, the conspiracies and all this kind of stuff. They will question old norms. They'll develop new types of thinking and stuff like that. And then if you read about what Gen Z does, the Sagittarius and Scorpio, if I believe I'm right about the Sagittarius, it might be Capricorn or something like that, but it says that they'll put it into effect. So you have the Pluto and Scorpio generation are like the people who made all the conspiracy stuff come out to the forefront, and then the Sagittarius people are like making it really into effect. So I think you're right that it is a generation.
Finish what you have started, kind of shit.
It's really interesting.
Goblina and the progressives, there's different layers there, but Goblina falls under a category that the alt-right documents. And we're talking about demographics equals destiny type stuff with her. Now,
well, that's another thing we were talking about.
And then, of course, you have your traitors to your country. You know, you have the whites that want to see the Constitution revised and all this stuff. That's a whole other case. There are layers to this, and the outside forces I don't think really count as the same sort of progressives that we see that are traitors. Traitor progressives are a losing thing in the country. That's why the Democratic Party needs to bring in so many third worlders so that they can have voters. Because if not for the third worlders, they wouldn't have enough votes to undermine the Constitution in the first place. They wouldn't have the capacity. I think that when we look at the numbers and all this stuff, we always have to remember at the back of our minds the demographic component to it, because that will skew things. An outsider conquering the United States is a different victory condition than a traitor conquering the United States.
Always kill a traitor before an enemy, Jimbo. Remember that.
Yeah, exactly.
That's something I wanted to talk about. Do you think you could let's segue into the future of America and the browning of America and what's going on in California?
Well,
California.
Jim Jones. You guys, where the fuck your Jim Brown? Is that your fucking governor? He pardoned five roasters today.
Jerry Brown. Yeah. I was gonna talk about that too. Can you guys talk about that for about a minute while I go to the little security guard's room?
Well, I mean, it's been a pretty cool thing because it riled up the right wing. It got a lot of people in California more active, so I think there will be more turnout for even the midterms as a result. And it basically
I want something like that to happen in New York.
Yeah,
I don't like Cuomo.
Yeah, the more things like this happening, the better, really. And I've heard the things on the news and the advertisements for the upcoming midterms and all this stuff, and it's just part of it. It gives ammo to the PACs that have to put this stuff together.
I don't think going on gun rights is going to save New York. Neither immigration is going to save New York at the moment. Because if gun rights is going to save New York, Cuomo would have been voted out when he announced the fucking New York Safe Act.
Gun rights are, yeah. I mean, it's definitely not going to save New York because demographics equals destiny. New York can't be safe. This is the difference between the boomer generation and subsequent generations. There's people that accept science and those that deny it. There's those that accept empirical evidence and those that deny it. When you talk to boomers, you get a couple different varieties. You have your Reaganites that believe that you just tell someone a convincing story and somehow it changes everything, even though there's no data to substantiate that. Then there's the Christian boomers that say we was all the same and shit. Hashtag Noah's Ark.
Right, they're brown as long as they're Christian.
And then that doesn't show up in the data anywhere. And this is one of the cool things about the alt-right, is that the alt-right basically is the Galileo movement of our political generation. They're saying, sorry, whatever your preconceptions are, be damned. We are looking at the facts that demographics are destiny. Choose your politics accordingly.
Let me go off of that. It's literally 4chan that did that. And I always find it interesting in my own little meta way of looking at things, that it's called 4channel. It's something that we skipped over. But when Jung draws his mandalas, he always has 4 channels of the psyche. You have the superego, the ego, the unconscious, and the id. So there's 4 channels in a psyche. And if you go to 4chan, there's all kinds of fucking psychological type psychotic people. And it's a pushing against of norms. I think if you could say anything about 4chan and what it's done to the internet culture is that it's challenged. I mean, it's challenged everything to the extent to be so what's the word I would use? I don't even know. So contradictory, or just to challenge every single fucking social norm, to be so out there, to be so crass, to be so, you're pushing against old, crusty, everything that's politically correct. You're pushing against it, for lack of a better word. I don't know what I would really use the term to describe politically correct. Polite. you're pushing against everything which is suppressed. Or or you're kind of rather not pushing against what's suppressed, but you're unleashing everything which is suppressed. So I think that literally just 4chan is the reason why that we're having a lot of these discussions right now, like I said, with the explosion of communication. And I always love that meme. I don't. There's a screen cap of it somewhere, which says that it literally, the only way to rebel against authority from 4chan was to become traditionalists. You know, that's the only way left to rebel was to become fucking conservative. Like, you know what I mean? It's like it blows my mind sometimes just thinking about this shit. But
and one mistake people make is the idea of the horseshoe theory, saying that what happens is basically we went so far left that people are going to be contrarian and go right. I don't think that the pendulum effect is what's happening. I think it's just you can only jump so high before you fall to the ground. And the ground is basically the natural order. And that's why you'll notice that the cycle happens. But I don't think it's a pendulum exactly. I think it's a resistance.
It's more complicated than just a pendulum. It doesn't just go back and forth. But I think there's definitely that aspect of it. I mean, that's just the relationship between the conscious and unconscious mind. When you suppress something, like, for instance, the hippies, they suppressed their desire to be degenerates. They let it out. And then degeneracy flourished. And like myself, I was quite a degenerate in my day. I would go out and do drugs, fucking party, and all that. And, and then there became a point where my suppressed urges were being traditional. So, I mean, I think that there is a relationship in our own minds, which is kind of like a pendulum in the sense that it's like a black and white kind of area, but
we're missing the natural rights. We talked about that before.
Well, that's what it settles on. That's what it settles on, and I think it moves forward rather than seeing it as like a pendulum. Maybe seeing it as like two legs, kind of moving. Not that it just goes back and forth, but it kind of moves in a direction.
The farther you get back down to nature, the more, I guess, in a way, right-wing, the more strict it gets. Because when you get back to the baseline, you end up in situations where not only does your race matter, but even your own genetics within your race become more critical.
Well, what is nature? I would interject and say, what is nature? And like we've been talking about genetic engineering. What is race? You know what I mean?
Well, for sure. Like, I think that this desire for tradition, not much more than a desire to be our natural selves. Because what's not our natural selves is what the progressives, what they propose is earth-destroying, anti-human stuff.
You're saying that it's not necessarily a pendulum, but it's a return to
it's like someone jumping up and falling down. The progressives want society to jump up away from the order that they hate so much. That is nature. Because, I mean, nature is brutally about order.
Let me say it like this. I would say, say you have a person holding a pendulum, and as they swing it back and forth, they're moving slightly forward. Like the pendulum, and then it moves forward, and that's the baseline, I think. Because to talk about a baseline in that sense, it kind of makes me think of kind of like a kind of anarcho-primitivist kind of mindset, and that's there inside of the depth of our psyche and our reptilian mind. And then our brain grew forward, and we developed this neocortex, and that's why sure.
It is the baseline is changing. I guess that is true, but what it is that we're just kind of evolving as the time goes on.
No doubt.
And I think what we're gonna the transhumanism thing is kind of a wrench in the gears, because this is one of the things that I like. On JF's stream, he talks about a phenotypic revolution. And this is something that people like Ray Kurzweil would talk about also. This is effectively where the system that we're talking about between humanity and nature becomes changed, because we're not ourselves anymore. Once we've completely linked with machines, once the singularity begins to truly occur, we're not human Homo sapien anymore. We're going to be like the man of war jellyfish, where the AI is going to be a sentience that's part of us, much like our conscience is. It's going to be a secondary sentience that is with us at all times.
It's hard to fathom that, but like we were talking about earlier, I think it'll transcend language and it will kind of just change our entire experience, our senses, how we think, how we feel, and how we relate to one another. I'm surprised there isn't more weird sci-fi anime which takes it in a kind of esoteric direction like that. Maybe the end of Evangelion might be as close as you get. You know what I mean? Like, and people are like, "What the fuck was that? What just happened?"
People don't tend to think about the esoteric component. The Japanese writers are very, very good at the cyberpunk, very good at the technical stuff. But the idea, the closest would be Ghost in the Shell, where she's trying to discover whether or not she has a soul because she's been uploaded into the net, and she doesn't know like really what she is anymore.
I would say a combination of Ghost in the Shell with End of Evangelion. Like after the fucking third impact happens and Shinji's like fucking floating around in the astral dimension, like sharing his memories with Rei and all these people, and they're like all like kind of having the same kind of common experience. I think it's gonna maybe something like a combination between that.
That's gonna happen in the future, man.
Yeah, man. I'm telling you, it's already happened. It's only the future.
I wish you could name some anime, but I only watch gay animes, according to you.
Yeah, you do. You're a faggot.
It's going to take a very, very high dense storage medium first off, so that you could store the deep learning AI on your body. That is coming, of course. Like they have many different mediums they're working with now. There's even the possibility of it sharing your body as the medium, but I don't think that would be the best, because that would mean that the storage medium would actually be more fragile. So I think they need to come up with something that could store massive amounts of data, but not on a cloud, because you don't want the AI to disappear either. You want it to always be accessible, and it would grow up with you. Have you ever seen that movie, The Gold Compass?
I have actually, but let me interject something real quick. When they always talk about finding these like fibers from like UFOs, they always say that they're like so extremely dense that they can't. It's like beyond our even reckoning, like how dense the material is, like the matter of the ship and stuff like that.
Well, we're getting there with the nano engineering. Once we can engineer a storage space that could allow for AI, deep learning technology on your body, then here's what you do. As a child, you wear this crown that guy on the article wears, and the AI begins to learn how you're thinking compared with what you're saying. And then eventually the AI will be able to speak for you. At that point, you could sync your AI with people that also have this AI familiar of sorts, and that AI could act as the medium for you to communicate with your friend, whether or not they're in front of you. You know, you're not going to look at your phone and text anymore. You'll just have the option of like mind melding in a way.
Yeah.
That's
the next digital
true
renaissance.
Future.
Yeah, that's the next digital renaissance when transhumanism comes.
Our eyes, man. Our eyes are simply electrical signals. We could simply have the ability to send an electrical signal to our optic nerves and create augmented reality anywhere.
Yeah, Google Glass will look like some fucking like primitive ass fucking ooga booga tier shit in about 30 years.
Samsung's already left them in the dust. They have contact lenses that project now.
God damn, that's nuts. Okay, well, that was a very interesting tangent. I don't think we even need to talk about the future browning of America. I mean, if America is... I could see the future of America in the West is going in several different directions. It might become an Islamic caliphate. It might become just like fall apart for some reason. It might be conquered by China. We might engage in a nuclear war. But if things tend to stabilize, I think that we'll see this type of stuff that we're talking about. Yeah, Nicola.
I don't think One thing that I don't think will happen in the foreseeable future is the repeal of the Second Amendment. I don't think that will happen.
That's numerically not going to happen.
No,
they'll not going to
happen. I wish you would. I wish you would.
I kind of want them to try because if they do try, it's just going to be race war now.
I wish a nigga would. Shit.
No,
come and take
it
my
really is.
Second Amendment.
If they try to do it, it's just going to be everyone signing up to join militias and shit.
Yeah, you try to take my Second Amendment, nigga. I'll buy a gun just to shoot your ass. Shit.
It's like that's one of the few reasons I'll leave and flee to the South.
Yeah, it's.
Why don't you flee to the West? I mean, from where you are, you could go to Indiana.
Yeah, don't go to the South, man. We need to all just like every sane, rational.
We'll meet up in Virginia or some shit.
No, fuck Virginia. No, we got to go a little like the North, and the Midwest.
Texas.
Texas, no. Midwest and North is about the last place to escape from. Just the
middle of it. Huntsville, Alabama, and take it over.
Someday, my friend. Someday.
I like Huntsville. Like a lot of people rightfully don't like Alabama.
Yeah, you'll never catch me down there ever.
Massive ghetto areas, but when I was there, I liked it. But I gotta say, I think I like Nashville more, because it's a weird city, but it's a pretty cool city.
You never catch me anywhere fucking in the fucking 100 miles from the fucking deep south. No, I'm sorry. Way too many nogs. I've never
Depends on the city.
Never grown out with, no, I don't care. No, way too many. Especially anywhere around the Mississippi fucking river. Get me the fuck away from all of that. But will we get to transhumanism before the balkanization and racialization of America matters? No, I think we'll have like some kind of thing like that happen, some kind of like conflict before we get to the singularity.
The balkanizing thing doesn't even need to be that discussed. We could just tell people, go look up an American Renaissance video. I mean, this is all stuff that's been hammered out the past 2 years by the alt-right down to a science.
You keep changing your damn volume.
Oh, my bad.
That's okay. Well, let me turn. God damn it! You did it again.
Where's the volume now?
It's on 132%.
He just keeps sitting up and sitting back.
Yeah,
probably.
That's what happened. I didn't know it would make that big of a difference.
Well, let me turn it down. Anyways, let me turn it down again. You gotta stop leaning back and whacking it, all right? Yeah,
it's hard, man.
Yeah, I know. Did you get the
AI goddess?
Yo, right? Yeah. Oh, fuck yeah, man. After watching Blade Runner 2040,
really, all I want to be able to do in America, if in my lifetime, is own a gun and
have an AI waifu.
Getting arrested for saying the shit.
And have an AI waifu.
Yeah, have an AI wife.
After watching the new Blade Runner, I was like, you know what? I think an AI waifu might be just like the perfect thing. Give me some like old fucking genes and fucking give her some chromosomes or give her a fucking embryo fucking from some transplant. Fucking I'm good, man.
Well, seriously, the exogenesis wombs are right around the corner. So, I mean, once those are out, you really got to start asking yourself.
I mean, I
swear to God, I would rather have an AI bitch than a fuck.
But we should like take over an Asian country, like just white people move to like Japan and take it over.
That's the dumbest shit that I've ever heard you say. Why?
I don't know. Why not?
You drunk?
You know what's more likely? You could probably convince a government of an Asian country to take an area of the country to create a white colony. That kind of thing they would go for because they understand the payoff of it.
Just Asians and whites unite together to try to save themselves from the fucking mud menace.
But yeah, they like whites.
There was a thread on fucking Poll today about how we should all create international fucking militias, and everyone was like, "Fuck off, FBI." Everyone was like, "Nice try, FBI."
Nice try, FBI.
Yeah, that's the other thing with the people that raid Poll. They really think that they're getting forward with it. Like with the lay 56%
face.
AstroTurf meme. They thought what they were going to do was demoralize Poll by creating the Amerimut meme. But what ended up happening is they gave us the template for La Goblina.
Do you really? I don't know, man. I think it just might be European butthurt that created that meme. Maybe it's a highly developed CIA algorithm.
It's not CIA. The guy that made it is actually a professional lefty that does advertisements. Like he's actually a professional, and they just started posting it everywhere. The Europeans love it, of course, but
of course, they've been waiting to fucking have something to be relevant.
Yeah, but then we flipped it around on them.
It's a funny meme. It's a funny.
Now
meme.
it's La Goblina. I mean, undoubtedly.
Yeah.
Now it's just a meme that makes fun of mixed children.
Nigga, I live in California. I see El Goblino every time I go outside. So I mean, it's not just a fucking meme. It's a real thing. I'm fucking quarter Goblino myself. But anyway, I don't think it's a big deal. You know, it's just the people. You know, Europeans use it to troll because they're like,
but I mean, La Goblino, like give me guns. Like that face has become her now as of the current war with them.
You made that, right? That was your OC.
No, I didn't make that one. I have no clue who did that.
Those little baby ones are
her
great.
face, but it looks like fucking
I have made zero content relating
to the Goblino.
Yeah, I haven't made one.
That's because you're Portuguese too. You fucking nog.
Yeah,
but he's probably the only one that isn't Mediterranean.
He was a king. What's the name of that fucking dude? The Portuguese guy from Age of Empires.
Technically,
the Age of Kings.
Shakti's Mediterranean.
I'm like an 8th Mediterranean. I'm an 8th Inca Indian and 3/4 Anglo and French. My mom's
French is Mediterranean. French is technically Mediterranean.
Fuck off. My mom's dad was French Canadian, if I remember correctly. My mom's mom is German. My dad's mom is a Catholic, Texan, Trump supporting, she's a wonderful person, from Texas, German with red hair. She's great. For some reason, she decided, probably because of her Catholicism, to marry. I don't know what my grandpa looked like when he was younger, but my grandpa he looks like a more Indio than Spanish. That's for sure. He was a brown little bean. I never really never really got along with him, but anyway. He was like a kind of Inca genotype, but yeah, kind of like mestizo, I guess. But yeah, it was weird. Me and my sister, when we go over to to my grandpa's house, dude, I'll be up there squawking in Spanish and shit, and I'm like, I don't have any idea what's going on. That feel in Californian. Speaking of California, you guys see the kind of like war that's going on between ICE and
oh my god, it's wonderful.
Yeah, it's very entertaining.
I've been waiting. I think everybody has been waiting on this, and even a lot of Hispanic people in California have been waiting on this for a long time. Just because the state has been fucking overrun since the 80s. The levels have been insane. I say you live in Cali, you understand. You even live close to the border. It's just
I don't live close to the border. I live close to a different border, but I mean,
you live in the desert.
I don't live anywhere near Mexico. But the important thing to remember about California is how it got this way, and this is one of the biggest things that I think has helped the conservative movement. Is they realize that the conservative Reaganite type politics is the reason that California will be forever blue. They understand, even if they don't want to talk about it, that it's their ideology that made this happen. This would never have happened if not for Reagan and if not for this outgroup preference and pathological altruism typical of white voting populations. This is something that the alt-right is rightfully conquering, I
I don't get it, man. I live about 700 fucking miles north of damn fucking the border. I'm up here in Wine and Weed County, in Jefferson.
And you find
actually,
them everywhere.
huh? Oh yeah. Well,
everywhere.
they're everywhere in Cali, but specifically here because it's a wine area. But I mean, not even all of them are grape pickers. A lot of them work construction. Some of them work in services. It's gotten to the point where they're second generation now, so their kids are coming up and they're working, clerical jobs because they can speak Spanish. Trust me, I have clerical experience, and I've applied for dozens of clerical jobs. Do you speak Spanish? Un poquito. I took it 2 years in school because my dad was too much of a selfish asshole to fucking actually teach me the damn language, even though he spent a lot of time in South America. So I took it in school. But no, I don't speak Spanish. I'm gonna just start lying if I get unemployed again. I'm gonna just start lying and saying I speak Spanish. This is ridiculous. But so they're second generation. So now that they've invaded areas like mine, where it's or especially the Central Valley, where it's basically just Mexico, the Salad Bowl as they call it. Like Watsonville down there, Salinas.
What percentage of fucking California will get deported if Trump just went, yeah, fuck it, we're just gonna deport them all?
Oh, there'd be a massive
good percentage, man. But then you have your anchor babies, and all the liberals would cry. So
who gives a shit? Just kick them out.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm all for like a fasci goy type shit like that. But it's not gonna happen, man. There's too many fucking cucks. You have to kill the cucks first. Like I said, remember, kill a traitor before an enemy, Jimbo. So yeah, California is screwed in general. The ice thing is amazing. It's hilarious. I remember. The
New York State's 60%, still 60% white, mostly Italian.
Implying.
I mean, you said demographics is destiny.
Oh, mamma mia!
Is a spaghetti.
Mamma mia! We destined for meatballs and shit. Oh boy,
we was Romans and shit.
You fucking ass. We was
Welcome
Romans.
to New York. This is the New York chapter of Generation Identity. Today we have lasagna and spaghetti.
Oh shit, man! I love it. The eternal thread on poll: are Italians white?
If only Richard Spencer was Italian.
Bro, I say, how long back?
Richard Spencer said we're white, so we are.
Richard Spencer,
he did say Italians are white.
He said that I'm cool in the ethno state being a quarter mix. He said we can amalgamate you poor little minchlings. Anyway, I say, how many times have you seen the fucking thread? Are Italians white? That's like the perfect bait thread. You get fucking a million responses. And it never ends. It never ends. It never is resolved. Yes, no, yes, no, yes, kind of, no. Yes. What?
I also post the Are Asians white thread. It doesn't matter. Like it doesn't matter if it's retarded. It still gets 350 replies.
Well, more retarded shit gets more replies nowadays. I mean, back in the golden age of poll, there was more.
They wouldn't even reply to that shit.
Yeah, no, when there was the new fags during the election. But yeah, according to Hank, you Asians are white.
There's going to be more of them. Our 4chan got shut down.
Oh, Jesus Christ! I don't. I go on there sometimes if I'm like really bored and I want to like see what's going on. But it's good for news and shit. It's kind of like Drudge Report.
So we all know where they're going.
Yeah.
Band's still pretty old faggy.
Fuck off Reddit.
Great. Bant is where we get Outer Heaven people from.
Is that where Rise came from?
I keep getting fucking banned. I keep getting fucking my threads deleted on bans. It's really annoying.
It's probably because you need to get good. Is probably what the reason is. You know.
You have to know what to post.
You have to get good. That's all it is.
I'm trying to just post server links.
So how hilarious is it that the leftists are trying to repeal the Second Amendment? I mean, is it really like
Sam Hyde made a funny ass video on Instagram.
I saw that. But I mean, I agree. I wish they would. I wish a nigga would. But I mean, like,
Dude,
how hilarious is it that people actually?
All we need is Cuomo or De Blasio to say the Second Amendment's bad, and we need to ban it, and fucking every single cop in the state will vote against him.
Yeah. Well, not even that. Every fucking sane person, like I said, about conservatives living more in nature, everybody outside of the hive would lose their fucking minds, because rightly so, they are able to think for themselves because they're not inside of the Borg fucking CNN fucking
kite. The problem with New York State is that they have Albany, they have Albany, they have New York State, they have New York City. I'm sorry, they have New York City, they have Albany, they have Buffalo, and they have Oswego, and that's really all they need.
Yeah. Add source. Can I add a fucking video to the source here? I would love to play that video as a.
There's 19 million people
I don't
in
think
the state.
I can.
Only 3 million feel the need to vote every year.
Yeah, guys. Anybody listening out here who is sane and rational, please kill your local rabbi. I mean, go out and vote. Wait, what did I say?
Go out and vote.
What did I say?
Nothing. You didn't say anything.
I didn't do nothing. Yeah. Anyway. So, I mean, like, hold on a second. To really peel into the mind of, I mean, we talked about this earlier about, you know, the crush the urbanites meme. The people who live in this, like, this literal matrix where I remember last week, Nico, you didn't hear it, but I was talking about how when I went to meet my EGF in San Diego, and boy, I tapped the fuck out of that, and it was nice. But anyway, when I got into San Diego, that's neither here nor there. When I got into San Diego, like, I felt like the whole, like, grid pattern of the city, I just felt like kind of mental, like, psychic force on me. And for some reason, the word egregor came out of my head, and it kind of means the same thing. Like, when there's a huge aggregation of people who are on the same, like, wavelength, whether you want to call it like a some kind of actual brain wavelength, or just like something just like that's triggered by the way that people culturally interact with each other or socially. But being in a major city, there's a reason why that all the big cities are blue, is they all think the same. So for some reason, these people in the blue cities, they get manipulated by Big Brother, i.e. CNN, the TV, and they actually think that they can repeal the Second Amendment.
They're domesticated. You know, they're not actualized humans.
They're good guys.
They're like fat pets. You know, they are not living up to their potential.
Let me tell you, like I said, I spent half of my life living in the Bay Area, living in the city near San Francisco, near San Jose. And then I came out to the country and I became a completely different person.
See, I've never lived in a city.
Yeah.
I've not lived in a real city.
I lived in the suburbs, but it was close enough to be still afflicted by the egregor monster. You kind of just get it. Especially in the, you know, rich kind of yuppie suburbs. But and then when I came out to the country, like, I kind of like, it was kind of weird. It was kind of like unplugging, and then when you unplug, like, the data like kind of dumped out of my head. So I went through a phase of just like,
it's like purging in a way.
Yeah, purging, but in a negative sense. Like, I went through a phase of like being like a total degenerate. Like, all of the things which I was holding back, I just let go. Like, I would go to parties every week, and I would do drugs. I never really liked fucking random bitches, but I think that was a generational thing. It wasn't really like that. I'm older than most people probably in the alt-right. But back in my day, it wasn't really a thing. Like, hookup culture wasn't like it was now, so never really was out there just like screwing random females, but I was definitely partying and doing drugs. And once that got out of my system, like, I almost killed myself, like ODing on ecstasy. And that's a whole nother story for another podcast, because it was a really interesting thing. And then it kind of like, I realized I kind of came to a dead end. And then I find myself out in nature, come to a dead end. and I just like kind of fell into the niche of spiritualism and esoterics, meditation, all that good stuff, mushrooms, weed, mind expanding
I think a lot
stuff.
of these visceral experiences that people use drugs for are to fill a gap that they could experience in nature. Like when you go on long runs through the forest, go on trail runs, and just the colors and like the motion blur and all this stuff has such an exciting feeling to your senses, because that is where you belong. You know, just look at our hands. We're supposed to be climbing trees. You know, we're supposed to be out in the dirt and getting.
Nigga, I was climbing trees when I was a little monkey.
Yeah, I mean that's what we're supposed to be. And
I didn't do shit. All I did was play Xbox.
You're from New York and you're a little boy. Your opinion is irrelevant on this topic. Have you even ever seen a tree?
I have. There's a tree outside my house right now.
What kind of tree is it?
Tree, though. It's one of those like small ones that I've seen on Home Alone.
What kind of tree is it?
A maple tree.
He actually knew. He actually knew the name.
It's because you're so close to Canada.
Yeah, I give you props. He actually knew the name of the tree, the actual single tree that's probably cracking up out of the sidewalk somewhere.
Like if you touch a maple tree, it'll actually turn you gay. That's what happened to Trudeau.
Yeah. Oh God. Let's. Can we continue to just pretend that Canada doesn't exist, please? But
you said that in episode 1.
Did I?
You were like, really? Canada doesn't exist. You don't give a shit about Canada here.
Yeah, just like Australia. Canada and Australia are just like.
Isn't it funny that Trump actually gives preferential treatment to South Korea over Canada?
I don't know why Trump would like.
I gotta say, those K-pop male singers are still.
I feel like Japan and South Korea are more important allies than Canada.
Well, just like compare your average K-pop male singer with your average Canadian, and they're just more masculine. You know, if you're hanging out with Canadians, it's almost like you're at a pride rally. But even hanging out with Korean singers with the lipstick and stuff, they're still more masculine than Canadian men.
Oh, Koreans though. I had a Korean real good friend when I was in high school. His name was fuck, I can't remember his fucking name.
Yeah, believe it or not, I may live in New York, but I don't know a lot of Asians.
He was mad masculine. I don't think there's a lot of Asians. My boy.
No, it's like the fastest growing demographic in the state.
Good. It's much better than my fastest growing demographic, which is.
But they still vote the same way.
Well, yeah. I mean, especially the females. That it's skewed. The females vote overwhelmingly blue, but the men, depending on the state, can vote overwhelmingly red. Like it totally depends on the state.
Wait, where was that? Did any of you guys see the fucking somebody made a political cartoon of when Trump was talking about raising tariffs on steel. Canada?
Yeah, the rake.
The rake. Where is it? I'm looking on my computer. I need it. I need to post it on the screen right now.
And you posted it 16 times in your old server.
Yeah, I know the picture you're talking about.
Where is it?
It's him pouring liquid
in...
metal on the counter, and it says the rake is coming.
Oh shit! Maybe it's in my download. I can save all of my media files into my separate HDD. To store my shit when I reinstalled Windows. Fuck you guys out there. Do you guys use SSD or HDD?
HDD.
You're a fag.
IXI told me to get an SSD.
You're a total fag for that, man.
Dude, I have a 750 Ti.
What?
I have the worst graphics card ever.
You have an HDD. What is wrong with you? Have you ever been on used a computer with an SSD?
No, I haven't.
See, the thing is, like, an HDD is like a fucking watch. It's got a lot of moving parts. So when you try to load your files from there, it's gotta like crank shit around. It's like the difference between like what's a good analogy?
SSDs are expensive.
expensive. I have a 256 gigabyte SSD.
I tried to buy a 500 gigabyte one the other day, and it was $250.
It's not expensive. It's so like literally it takes 5 seconds to boot up Windows. Like it literally 5 seconds, and Windows is booted up. I can't even fucking use fucking laptops with HDDs in them. It's like I can't fucking stand it. Fuck, I can't find the fucking meme. It's pissing me off. But anyway,
I have it somewhere else.
God damn it. I saved it to my external thing. But let's see, what talking points do we have left here? Let's finish it up with this thing about
the new meme war. Oh, what about Kirk Eichenwald?
What?
Kurt Eichenwald.
He's the dude that was looking up tentacles.
Chiku.
Oh god, yeah, that was funny.
And then he got
that guy.
Porn, and then
he got caught with tentacle porn, and then he got caught with child porn, and then he got what else happened? What else fucking happened? Oh, he the other day, Paul went after him because he went after one of the right-wing students at Parkland and started shitting on the kid. And then Paul gets his advertisers to pull out, and basically the guy was like, "Oh, I didn't mean to insult that kid. I was going after another high school kid." His advertisers still pulled out though. Oh, and then he sent the threatening email to Jim, Mr. Medicare.
They needed
threatening.
Oh,
him,
really?
Threatening him not to release the video on him.
You know what I love about this podcast, which is totally different from all the internet blood sports shit? It's not about fucking drama. We actually talk about ideas. You feel me? Like if you watch
this isn't a different vein completely.
Totally
like,
different.
It's an official podcast. You can't talk about drama.
This is more in the same vein as any other topical show. You know, for Rogan, it's whatever random thing he's doing.
Yeah.
Back when Terrence McKenna was around.
Yeah, I was gonna say McKenna. It's not fucking internet blood sports where it's like, oh, let's fucking talk about the latest e-celeb today. We talk about ideas here on the Mandala podcast. We're big brain wojaks here. Alright, like see right here, I'm gonna put up on the screen. This is us. Oh, wait, no, I put it on the Discord. Let's put it up on the screen for you guys so you can see how big brain we are here. Interestingly enough, this ties back to Crowley, guys. This is the interdimensional alien big brain wojak that's actually me from the future that Crowley was talking to.
Our heads are going to look like that once we have to make room for our AI familiars.
See, it's us from the fucking other side of stuff.
That would be a good place to put it. I mean, if they were to carve around the skull a bit and then expand it with like fake bone, you could literally put a reinforced like part of your skull.
Quantum neural net.
Yeah, just put the AI in there.
I put the picture of
see the guy that they made that was if humanity evolved to survive a car crash.
Yeah, we all remember. What was his name? Jeff or some shit like that.
Yeah, I don't remember his name. I have the picture.
It was some Australian fucking.
I see the embrace of transhumanism as the difference between running from the wave and diving into it.
I like how you described it, and I describe it to people just the way that you did it. The way that it's like I'm standing in front of a fucking tsunami, and I can either like acknowledge that there's a tsunami in front of me, or I can't. But it doesn't change the fact that there's a tsunami in front of me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, evolution has a date with the AI goddess, and it's not going to survive the bill.
Nah, I'm sorry, all you anarcho-primitivists out there, and even to us who've kind of like in a way become woke on the race pill. The race is going to be insignificant. Maybe not.
Hey, Shakti, you remember that the 8 values test?
No.
Remember the one that called me an neocon?
Yeah, you are a neocon. No, you're not anything. You're a kid. You're a little boy.
I took the test again and I got 97% laissez-faire capitalist, and it still called me a neocon.
Well, neocon is like laissez-faire capitalist plus like
militarism,
bombing, foreign countries.
Yeah, I mean, I got neocon on one test. I got fascist on another test. I got libertarian on another test. Like I don't really trust any of those.
I got libertarian on a
because they never give me the same answers. Like I've never gotten the same answer, and I answer the same way on all the tests, but I've never had two tests give me the same outcome.
Yeah, there's no
got
real
constitutionalist on one. I got
to be honest. Go ahead, sorry.
I got constitutionalist on one. I got neocon on another, and libertarian finally on one.
What I think is that the AI goddess needs to have the ability to, once we're hooked up to the neural net and we have those halos on us that are basically your AI familiar, if anybody starts having like anti-constitutional, anti-thoughts like that, the AI goddess just needs to be able to liquefy their brain, like right on the spot.
That's bad. No.
Do you have a problem with the Constitution?
No, I have a problem with AI deciding what's right thing and wrong thing.
I have bad news for you.
See, everybody thinks AI is going to be like when you look at an ant, do you think an ant is particularly dangerous? No, but if you could communicate with an ant and like,
I don't believe giving an AI the power to kill anyone it wants is the ideal solution.
You've been watching too
your
much
assumption
sci-fi.
is that you have to give the AI the ability. Once AI have the ability to affect, say, designer babies, we've already hit exit velocity for them.
Yeah,
it's already
singularity. And then we'll just merge together. Why do you think that AI and us can? Why do you, it's like I think it's like a sci-fi meme that AI will somehow, replicate itself into a fucking
become self-aware.
No. Create a body out of steel and like fly off into space or like try to attack us or something. I think that AI will very much develop along the same lines that humans.
I want to see AI develop as like in Halo. It does like how they use AIs in Halo.
No, I don't think it's like that. I think AI will be kind of like the relationship between God and humanity. And I think the relationship between Buddha and humanity. I think it'll be.
But it's kind of weird having humanity created that thing to make it big, to make it more powerful than humanity itself.
From our perspective, we created it. From its perspective, who knows what the fuck did the thing beyond time and space views us as?
I think
maybe we merge into it at some point that we don't even know.
Again, I like the example of the Golden Compass, because that one where they have the familiars that are just a part of them, and kill the familiar, they die, and etc. I see AI in the future being more of a familiar relationship. Like you have this,
like how the Forerunners use their fucking like how the Forerunners use their AI. Like they each had individual AI implanted in their armor, and they would do shit for them.
I see it in a much more meta way. I think
no one could believe that there were bodies in that.
Oh fuck!
La Goblina.
It
was La Goblina.
Abomination
del sur del Florida. Anyway, Ted Nugent says Parkland students have no soul. The absolute madman. The absolute madman. To be so base that you call fucking survivors of a violent murderer who shot up your fucking friends pathetic teenage soulless
Wait, he called his friends that?
No,
he called La Goblina.
Oh yeah,
David Hogg soulless.
Yeah, they have no soul. Ted Nugent lashes out at a Parkland shooting, and let me pause this so like Goblina doesn't.
It just depends on what your definition of a soul is. In the case of Ted Nugent, he associates a soul with critical.
No one.
She fucking did it again. Shut the fuck
whole
up.
thing. He was on the Joe Pag show. Basically,
didn't Alex Jones get his channel deleted for calling them crisis actors?
Yeah, it's almost like the old thing by Descartes, like who you cannot criticize. Those are the people that control you. Yeah, don't point out the fact that Hogg was a CNN intern before this shit. Don't say that. Don't point out the fact that his dad was an FBI agent or whatever.
ATF.
ATF, and then what it just came out recently that Orlando, oh God, what was his name again? Orlando,
Sheriff Ameramont.
no,
Sheriff,
God damn it.
Sheriff Israel was teaching the mosques how to like use guns. Also, it was also came out today that March for Our Lives was planned even before Parkland.
Yeah, doesn't make any sense. Doesn't surprise me. But what was his name again? Not Orlando. I'm sorry. It was in Orlando where he did the shooting. It was Omar. He shot up a gay bar.
Omar Muslim.
Omar. If you're a poof, you get off the roof. Mateen.
Yeah, it's him.
Omar, don't eat ass during my holy fast. Mateen, was that his name?
Yeah.
Omar, the penetrator, no homo. Mateen.
Yeah.
Omar, put that peen or get a bullet in your spleen. Mateen. Tossing grenades at your pride parades. Mateen. Turned out his dad was an FBI agent. Or informant.
That really makes me think.
Yeah, it makes you think, huh? All these guys, they are related to MK Ultra somehow. Omar, I'm not done. Omar, busting caps and traps, Mateen. Omar, God slay the queen, Mateen. Omar, it's raining leads on the fags giving head, Mateen. Omar, empty the 9 at the glory hole line, Mateen.
that one from that actually was a what's his name? Garrison.
Ben yeah.
That was a Ben empty a 9 in the welfare line.
Oh right. I remember that one. I do remember that one. Yeah. Speaking of which, what's his name? Dan just got fired recently. The guy that just got fired recently, he works for Nickelodeon. Dan.
And the Hyman Divider Schneider.
Yeah, damn the Hyman Divider Schneider. Dan, get in the candy man. Would you like some candy, ma'am, Schneider?
Dan, hold her down. She's a fighter, Schneider.
He just got banned from Nickelodeon. They're probably afraid of
too tight. It's just right, Snyder.
So bad. Though, maybe they're afraid of everybody that's going down in Hollywood right now. They're afraid of the Hyman Divider getting exposed. So they're just like, hey, go away, get out of here.
He's interesting to look at. He's like the shape of what's that?
Potato.
Like Tweedledee and Tweedledum from Alice in Wonderland, because his legs are a lot skinnier than he is fat from the waist to the neck, and he has a big triple chin, but he's like extremely round, and he's got very small arms.
He's also
he looks like Dr. Robotnik, kind
of. Ted Nugent again. The dumbing down of America is manifested in the cultural deprivation of our academia that have taught these kids the lies. Media that have prodded and encouraged and provided these kids lies, Nugent said. Wow, it's almost like Big Brother is a fucking thing and we're living through it. Of course it's terrible. Yeah. I never thought I'd say that when I was a fucking liberal in Silicon Valley, but
I've actually liked Ted for a long time. Back in 2011 to 2012, he really started to pick up in conservative media, and he had the whole pig hunt show thing that he was doing, and he just sort of got the ball rolling. And one of the reasons I joined the NRA is because he was explaining what it was.
Oh, you wanna say that thing you said about earlier about how the NRA memberships have gone up?
Yeah, they went up 500,000. Prior to the March for Our Lives, they had a kind of a low first quarter donations at 250,000 something.
Yes,
can't remember what it was. And then it skyrocketed up. It actually quadrupled. So they've basically doubled their annual membership as a result. More people have donated to their actual funds. And so the difference, when you join the NRA, you spend the money and you get your card, right? but you can also donate money on top of that, and those go to other funds too. So what happened is that the NRA has a lot of members already, but their membership went up 500,000 as a result, and their on top of that funds, I forget what they call it, their political action funds, those quadrupled. So they made 4 times what they made from donations like the previous 2 months, basically, previous 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
Did you say Republican voters increased 15% as soon as they mentioned a blanket gun ban?
Well, yeah, because, I mean, that just takes the centrists and makes them turn right, because no one wants to hear gun bans. People are okay with hearing, like, mental health screenings. They're okay with hearing about, like, that kind of stuff. But the lie is that the NRA is blanket against that kind of thing. The NRA actually cucks on a lot of things. There's contempt for the NRA, and there's a praise of Gun Owners of America lobby over the NRA. But the NRA are just, they're not bad. They're just not, they're not ideologically as good as GOA.
Well, they're boomers mostly, right? I mean,
yeah. You know, as the boomers phase out and the actual conservatives get in, the NRA is just going to look better and better.
Yeah, and it's the reverse. It's the Streisand effect happening. I think that ties into what we said about the new right versus the new left, and we didn't really go into that. We can do it.
I want to fight that faggot David Hogg.
Yeah, I think the half of the country wants to. Let's hit one more thing real quick before we wrap it up, because we're going on 2.5 hours here. The assassination of the former Russian spy. What?
Oh, really? Who's
what
the
happened
spy?
there? There was a former Russian spy in England who was assassinated by a Novichok, which is Russian for like a military grade chemical weapon. Actually, I think he's recovering. I don't think he died. He was in a ICU and whatnot, but he didn't die. But the West are using it as a casus belli to ramp up Civil War 2.0. Let me just tell you what the
World War III, right?
Yeah, well, that's, I don't know what they're getting at. Like,
I can tell you what they're getting at.
Yeah.
Hillary was supposed to take us to war.
Yeah.
That was the game plan, because if we go to World War III, then we don't have to pay China back, first off. Second, we can, go ahead and take over the rest of the Middle East, and then you can have both the Qatar pipeline and the Greater Israel project going, hunky-dory. You could have Russia out of the picture, so the largest country in the world will then be divided up, and then, their white population will be undermined, and then,
so is it leading to that? I mean, do they not understand that if you do that, then the world will be destroyed in a nuclear hellstorm? Or what's
the
reason?
people that do this aren't exactly known for, their giving a shit. Well, they're not known for reasonable thinking. There's a disconnect. There's a lack of time preference, like you see in Africa, where nothing gets done. And then there is like obsession with getting stuff that is sort of different. It's different than a normal time preference argument, because you're talking about like a lust for power that is beyond comprehension. Same with money and all this stuff. And these people that are pushing for the war, they're so manically thinking about their ascendance to almost a pseudo godhood that they're not thinking of what happens if they end up getting half the world nuked in the process. And some of them think that it would go down fine anyway. It's like with the Georgia Guidestone. They think, well, we'll just have less people and all that. These are people that, again, are detached from reality. Now, one problem they'll have with getting the war drums beating is that I don't think sentiment to fight Russia is strong.
They're certainly drumming the fucking drums of war over and over again.
No, I wouldn't really. I want to join the military, but I wouldn't necessarily want to fight Russia. They attack us first.
What? If
What do you mean?
Russia attacked us first?
I said I wouldn't want to attack Russia unless they directly attack us first.
Why the fuck would Russia attack us?
Exactly. I said I wouldn't want to.
Yeah, in my ideal world,
There's
we
no
have a
situation.
very friendly relationship with Russia.
Well, we tried
And-
to with Trump, and they won't let us. Like, Trump and Putin are fucking cut of the same cloth. They want to be friends, but the Congress, like, won't let them in the media and shit.
Yeah, it's a problem. Because that
It's a
is
huge
the thing
fucking
that
problem.
groups like the Windsors have been trying to prevent for the longest time. It goes back with all of the sort of weird relationship we have with the United Kingdom. In my ideal world, we form a good relationship with Russia and China. Because with us three together, what do we need Europe for? What do we need those fags in Canada for? What do we need anybody for? You know, China has the production capacity, the greatest production capacity in the world. Russia has boundless energy, boundless space, and a very smart population. Average IQ is very high. Spatial IQ is high, and their space programs are good. Their aerospace is good. You know, we have America. Our tech industry is the top in the world. We have, you know, the best AI in the world right now. China's close to us, but we're still beating them. We have the ability to produce the designs that these other two countries could use with us. Like, if the world could be revised in a way that cut out the old families of Europe, like the Rothschilds, and boot out our own, like the Rockefellers and all this stuff, and just sort of link together, like, that would change the paradigm of the world. Because then it would be, what do these people that turned in their guns and have to register their butter knives, what the fuck do they have to offer us?
I don't think that you should be allowed to have butter knives, to be honest.
I don't think they should either.
Ban assault bread. You
I don't
might
think bombs are
you
smart
could really
enough to operate high capacity assault spoons.
I want to Barry arrested
shit.
for walking out of his house with a spoon in his pocket.
You know, one of the tragedies of the last 100 years is the direction that China went with respect to us. Like, it would have been so much better if after World War II, it didn't end up just going into the commie shithole that it turned into. It would have been so much better if China and the U.S. kept our trajectory as friends, and if Russia didn't have the problem it had if the Romanovs stayed there and they just happened to modernize, and it could have just been us, because we're directly across from China. China's the same size as us with almost identical sort of geography. Then you have geology. What's interesting about China is when you look at the United States and then you look in China, you have almost exact parallels. They have their desert, they have their Colorado type looking place, they have their same issues on the East Coast, they have their productions in the South. We have so much in common, just from having grown up in similar land masses. And then, of course, Russia, who we should be bros with because we have a similar origin with the traditionalism. But, you know, it's just everything just sort of got messy.
The reason
I don't
we're not
understand
friends
that.
with Russia is because they used to be communists. The reason we're not friends with China is
No,
because
that's
they used to
not
be
the
communists.
fucking reason. We are friends with China. We're not friends with Russia because we're engaged in a control freak thing where after the Cold War, we're like jumped our fucking ass to fucking be the unipolar power. And Russia doesn't want to do that. And you know what? To be honest, Russia is a fucking shithole. I think, I forget who called it a glorified
It's
gas
GDP.
station. Russia's so
It
base.
is.
Those Russia boo people, they're retarded. Russia's fine. I have no problem with getting along with Russia, but treating it like it's fucking like Russia's such a great
a messed up country, and it's so big.
What is it? Their GDP is decreasing by 2% a year.
They have they're like I said, that someone said it's a glorified gas station.
It's hard, I think, to hold that against them though because of the sanctions. Like they are blockaded from everywhere but China. So I don't think that their GDP should be a measure of their success because they're not participating in the free market. We don't really know what Russia would operate like if they had the ability we did in the market. Like, if Russia could start producing cars and with no problem just start selling them, who knows who they'd compete with? If Russia could start actually competing in the tech sector, we don't know. But what we do know is that
unless they had foreign investment. Yeah, sorry.
Well, measurably, they have a high enough IQ that you could plant in industries. No, they do. They are up there with even Scandinavia.
Yeah, you got Solzhenitsyn and people like that. A lot of very good high IQ people, Slavs. Tesla, for example. Tesla was
there is an alcoholism problem, so of course that will change.
There's also a Mongolian
and heroin and crocodile and all this other
being
stuff
raped by Mongols problem.
That would definitely lead to some of their eagerness to go to war.
I think it's kind of right. I think it's kind of like a pendulum thing to view Russia as like the savior of Europeans. But they don't need to be our enemies. But for some reason, the neocon strategy, they're just so set in their ways, and they feel that we need to dominate the Central Asia and keep them out and have our little pipelines and stuff. But we've talked about this before. So for some reason, they're ramping it up. And like you said, they really want to reshape the world, and they think they can get it through war with Russia.
Well, PNAC is being prevented by Russia. Russia's presence in Syria prevents both the Greater Israel Project and the Qatar pipeline.
Well, then you have to talk about Iran also, because that's another thing. They're allies with Russia, and it's like kind of like just another World War II situation. So
Iran is one of the seven. The PNAC document that has to go under.
Yeah, I remember that video.
Do you see Russia is that big of a threat to us?
They're not a threat.
They're not they're not hostile to us anymore.
They're not a threat. We need to get them out of the way so we can do PNAC, like you said, Project for a New American Century.
Why do they fucking show them as a threat?
Because
I don't know.
Russia is in the way of Greater Israel and the Qatar pipeline. Those are the two major projects in the Middle East.
And also because Russia it's different. It's Europe, but it's not Europe. They have Europe on lock, but they don't have Russia on lock. They're not able to spread their propaganda so thoroughly in Russia, which makes them based in a way, but also it's a shit country. But then again, like you said, you have to take it, for instance, you have to take the sanctions in consideration, of course.
Yeah, you can't measure Russia against such an unfair deal, because we don't know how they operate as a country when they're not being blockaded by the United Nations. Like, if the United Nations didn't exist and Russia was able to just utilize its resources for production, look how much resources they have. There's resources they have that are in extreme scarcity in other parts of the world.
I don't understand there's something that must have happened, I think, during the Cold War, where there have been rival deep states. I think that's what it is.
Like I was saying, the Windsors. The Windsors and the Romanovs and Russians in general have a bad history.
It's rival deep states. That's why they can't. Otherwise, they would cooperate.
They're linked through family. We're talking like marriage of, a cousin of one person meets the cousin of another person. Weed? Like the royal families of the Romanovs and the Windsors have been mixed, and they've also been mixed with the royalty of the Scandinavians. The first dynasty in Russia was actually a Slavic woman and a Scandinavian man, I believe. It was Finland or Sweden, I can't remember. And that was basically the start. Russia's always had these relationships with European countries. And for people that hate Europe, Russia is a prime target because it is the last vestige of Europe because of its ancestral royal past with Europe.
True. So I think there's something. I think the intelligence apparatus are really what the thing is. I think that they're developed a deep state based around the KGB versus based around the CIA versus different organizations that are fighting and vying for power, and that's why that they took different allies. Why Russia is the Axis and we're the allies, and especially between like Saudi and Iran, it would be surprising if it doesn't pop off into World War III. And I think that's about all I have to add for the night. I think we need to wrap it up here. We're getting over about good show today. We're getting over 2.5 hours. Really, really good. I'm gonna.
Next time we should just do a whole thing on Dune since it's a hot topic.
Oh yeah,
I have to
definitely.
watch Dune.
Don't watch
you
it.
should get
Fucking
caught up.
watch the sci-fi TV version of it. It's better than the movie. It's way better.
What? I disagree. Watch the movie too.
No,
Even
watch
if
them
it's
both.
not that good, you need to see it at least for.
I like the ambiance, but the story is better in the sci-fi. Yeah, watch them both. All right.
And then read the book.
Yeah, and then read the book. All right, so I'm going to start a new tradition here. On the end of the show, I'm going to read a verse from the Rig Veda, from the first mandala, describing the episode number, and we're on number 11, so we're reading the Rig Veda, Mandala 1, Hymn 11, describing the magnitude of Indra, the king of heaven, the holder of the Vajra, represented with thunder, lightning, and rain. He rules over the realm of the gods. And the verse goes as, all sacred songs have magnified Indra, expansive as the sea, the best of warriors born on cars. The Lord, probably that means chariots, actually. I don't think they translated that properly. All sacred songs have magnified Indra, expansive as the sea, the best warriors born on chariots, the Lord, the very Lord of strength. Strong in thy friendship, Indra, Lord of power and might, we have no fear. We glorify with praises thee, the never conquered conqueror. The gifts of Indra from old, his saving succors, never fail when to the praise singers he gives the boon of substance rich in kine. Crusher of forts, the young, the wise, of strength unmeasured, was he born, sustainer of each sacred right, Indra, the thunderer, much extolled, Lord of the thunder, thou didst birch the cave of Vala, rich in cows. The gods came pressing to thy side, and free from terror aided thee. I, hero, through thy bounties am come to the flood addressing thee. Song lover, here the singers stand and testify to thee thereof. The wily Shushna, Indra, thou o'er there with thy wondrous powers. The wise beheld this deed of thine, now go beyond their eulogies. Our songs of praise have glorified Indra, who ruleth by his might, whose precious gifts in thousands come, yea, even more abundantly. All right, so ending the Mandala episode 11. I'd like to thank my guests, IXI, always here to expand on the communications web that's creating this new paradigm and make something that people can digest and enjoy and talk about, and hopefully we'll get this out to a wider audience. Thank you, Nicolo, who is muted because he's probably asleep because he lives on the coast. New York. Anything you wanted to add? Anybody have any closing statements or anything to talk about before we sign off here?
Italian Richard Spencer.
Italian Richard Spencer. That's a good meme.
Create a militia that isn't LARPy.
That's a good one also. All right. I'd like to thank my guests, and I'll see you guys next week on Saturday. Really long show today. All right. Signing off, Shakti Patsir here, and thank you for listening to the Mandala. Until next time, see you later.